You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM with Chris Baldwin. And a very good afternoon to you once again. It is Saturday the 14th of January 2023. This is Football Live on Brila FM. And after all the magic and drama of the FA Cup last weekend, the focus is very much back on the Premier League. The red and blue of Manchester crossed swords, of course, earlier on today. And in case you weren't aware, it ended Manchester United 2, Manchester City 1. City taking the lead on the hour mark through Jack Grealish, and in a complete turnaround of events in the 78th minute, Bruno Fernandes scoring a controversial equaliser, and then Marcus Rashford making it 2-1 in the 82nd minute. That's the way it stays. It stayed rather at the end of 90 minutes. It's a third defeat of the season for Manchester City. And of course, they remain 5 points behind Arsenal at the top of the Premier League table, having played a game more as well. So Manchester United 2, Manchester City 1, the final score at Old Trafford just a short while ago. Plenty of action, of course, last night as well, with Aston Villa continuing their good run under Unai Emery with a 2-1 win at home to Leeds United. But our attention turns towards this afternoon's Premier League action with coverage of 4 fixtures here on Football Live, which kick off in about 13 minutes' time or so. Liverpool, who haven't really got out of first gear this season, they make the trip to the south coast of England, where they play Brighton, who are hoping to improve upon that 9th placed finish in the Premier League last season. Frank Lampard is a manager under immense pressure at the moment, and he'll be hoping his Everton side can get the better of Southampton at Goodison Park. The Saints, who of course go into this match following that incredible win over Manchester City in midweek to reach the EFL Cup semi-finals. Meanwhile, Wolves and West Ham meet at Molineux, with both sides searching for points to move clear of the danger zone. Steve Cooper's Nottingham Forest have turned the corner in recent weeks, producing a string of decent results to propel themselves up the Premier League table. They play host to Leicester City, who are looking to end a run of 3 consecutive Premier League defeats. All 4 Premier League matches getting underway at 4 p.m. Team news and previews with our top team of reporters this afternoon. They will be across all the action for you here on Football Live. We're also covering action from the Championship as well. Our featured match is Reading versus Queen's Park Rangers, the battle of the hoops, with both teams looking to maintain their push for the Championship playoffs this season. Kickoff also at 4 p.m. And as always here on Football Live, we'll be across all the action taking place in the other top European leagues, with action in the Portuguese Primeira Liga as Vizela entertain struggling Maritimo. And of course, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest scores from all around Europe throughout the course of the next couple of hours. You won't miss a thing. So plenty to come here on Football Live between now and 6 p.m. And right now, let's head around the grounds for the first time this afternoon. First port of call, we build up to the encounter at the Amex Stadium, where Brighton face Liverpool. And with the team news, it's a very good afternoon to Jackson Cole.
Good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, Brighton, they will overtake Liverpool with a win at the Amex Stadium today, and it's felt this is as good a time as ever to take on the Reds, who have already dropped more points this season than they did in the whole of last season. So in goal for the home side is Robert Sanchez. He returns. In defence, you have Lewis Dunk, who also comes back, and he'll play with Levi Colwill and Purvis Estupiñán. Further forward, you've got Solly March, Moises Caicedo, Pascal Gross, Alexis McAllister, and former Liverpool man Adam Lallana are picked. And up top, you have Kaoru Matoma and Evan Ferguson. The main headline from the Seagulls team is there's no Leandro Trossard in the squad. Roberto De Zerbi revealed this yesterday. He's been omitted due to a bad attitude from the player, who has been linked with a transfer away from the Amex Stadium this January. Liverpool will be quite relieved to see Trossard not involved today, as the Belgians scored a hat-trick when the two sides met in a thoroughly entertaining 3-3 draw back at Anfield in October. But Jurgen Klopp has his own injury concerns, with Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz and Virgil van Dijk among those out, while the Reds are not in brilliant form this year. The Liverpool team sees Alisson Becker start in goal. In defence is Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joel Matip, Ibrahima Konate and Andy Robertson. Midfield is Fabinho, Jordan Henderson and Thiago Alcantara. And up top, you have Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, new signing Cody Gakpo, making his Premier League bow, and Mohamed Salah completes the sides. Liverpool are unbeaten in all 9 top-flight visits to Brighton. In fact, the only time Brighton have beaten Liverpool at home in a league match came in the old second division in 1961. The date of that 62 years ago, January the 14th. Could that be a sign? It's Brighton versus Liverpool with kickoff not too far away.
Yeah, Jackson, this could be a difficult match to call, couldn't it? Just 1 point separating Liverpool from Brighton, currently 6th and 8th respectively in the Premier League. And the Seagulls, they've already claimed a couple of high-profile scalps already this season, including Manchester United and Chelsea.
They certainly have. They've been one of the surprise packages this season. I think people would have been quite worried when Graham Potter left the club, but Roberto De Zerbi, he's put his own stamp on this very, very talented team. And let's not forget, very recently they went over to Everton. Okay, Everton are not playing so well, but they really taught them a footballing lesson, winning 4-1 at Goodison Park just over a week ago. So I think this could be a really, really close game. I cannot call it. It's going to be entertaining, though. I can't wait.
That's Brighton against Liverpool kicking off at 4 p.m. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. Let's hear the thoughts now of Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp on today's opponents, Brighton, at his recent press conference.
Obviously, it's really tricky. The squad is not the biggest in a moment, so you have to be really careful with the games coming up and all these kind of things. But still, the training week was really good. I liked it a lot. And Brighton requires a specific kind of respect because I don't think anybody underestimates them anymore. But still, it's just important to know that they are. And who would have thought that the possession stats could increase after Potter happened. So Mr. Serbi is obviously loves to have the ball as well, and so they are really playing good stuff and full of confidence. If you want no pressure, I would say if they would qualify for Europe, it would be massive, absolutely massive, and these kind of things. So it's a different situation, but for sure. But it's we have the opportunity to go there and cause them real problems.
That's Jurgen Klopp with his thoughts on today's match with Brighton kick-off in 7 minutes' time. Southampton, well, they produced one of the upsets of the season so far when knocking Manchester City out of the EFL Cup on Wednesday night to book themselves a place in the semi-finals. Here is Saints boss Nathan Jones assessing their current form.
Well, it's about keeping consistency, really, in your performance, whether that's Cup, League or whatever, because the 2 Cup wins have been against Premier League sides anyway, so it's equivalent to Premier League games. I know probably the feel is slightly different, but the levels of games have been Premier League games, so it's about continuity of performance. That's all we're looking for now.
That's the Southampton head coach, Nathan Jones. So let's build up to that important relegation clash at Goodison Park this afternoon where the Saints meet Everton. And with all the latest team news, we cross to Football Live reporter Jordan Mansour.
Thank you, yes. Well, after majorly disappointing seasons for both Everton and Southampton, they come into this needing a win to take the pressure off. And pressure that's been mounting on both Everton's Frank Lampard and Southampton's only recently appointed Nathan Jones. And undoubtedly, the pressure and tension will be felt in here if Everton don't get off to a good start, as we saw against Brighton a fortnight ago. And if the players do fail to give the honest Everton faithful the performance they can be proud of, you will expect that Southampton will be there to capitalise after their midweek 2-0 impressive win against Manchester City. So they should come into this with some sort of confidence, which might even be the difference here with 2 sides who are winless since the World Cup. If Southampton can stir up the negativity and thrive off it, they should have a good chance of winning here today. So they start, the away team come with Bazanu in goal and a back 3 of Salisu, Lianco and Saleta Sarr. 5 across with Diallo, Elianusi, Lavia, Ward-Prowse, Walker-Peters. Ward-Prowse probably looking like being Southampton's biggest threat this afternoon from set pieces. And Che Adams and Edozie leading the line. Everton line up with Jordan Pickford in goal. Ben Godfrey, Conor Cody and Tarkowski forming the back line. Crucial for Everton to have Ben Godfrey back, you might think. Seamus Coleman, Alex Iwobi, Nigerian, probably been Everton's shining light this season. Andre Onana, Adrisagay and Mikolenko forming the midfield block, and then Damari Gray playing off Calvert-Lewin for Everton, and they'll be happy to have him back as well. So both sides find themselves winless since the World Cup, as I said, and in the bottom three. So you suspect really that neither side would have chosen to play anyone else right now. They're the teams off form, and it would likely be an afternoon of chaos, desperation, and potentially devastation for one side, and a rare feeling of jubilation for the other. It's a crunch game at the bottom of the Premier League, and it's Everton versus Southampton, kicking off in just under 5 minutes.
That's Jordan Mansell reporting on Everton against Southampton for Football Live. Huge problems, of course, for Everton off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And a few hours ago, Everton's board of directors announced that they will not attend the match because of a real and credible threat to their safety. They really are a club in turmoil at the moment. As we continue to go around the grounds very, very shortly, one of our other featured Premier League matches this afternoon is at the City Ground, where, of course, Nottingham Forest play host to Leicester City. Here is the Foxes manager, Brendan Rodgers, with his thoughts ahead of today's contest.
We have a great game at the weekend, and like I said, it's the perfect type of game you want to come into. We played very well a few months back when we played them. We know it'll be a tough game going there, but this is where you have to show your mettle as a team, and hoping then that you have that quality. But certainly you have to match everything in terms of duels and being competitive, and then look to find that quality in a game like this here that can get the result.
That's Leicester boss Brendan Rodgers assessing his side's chances at Nottingham Forest this afternoon. Let's get some build up to that match. Kick-off just 3 minutes away with the team news. Here's Football Live's Pat Narrett.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Chris, and welcome to the City Ground. And Nottingham Forest, as you heard, now take on Leicester City. And with regard to Nottingham Forest, under Steve Cooper, they're doing quite well. Currently 15 in the league with 17 points. They've got through the semi-final of the EFL Cup, beating Wolves 4-3 on penalties. And their next opponent is Manchester City. And looking at the lineup, it looks to me now they're going to be playing a 4-4-2 formation, but with the midfield being a diamond midfield. And Henderson in goal, a back four of Lordy, McKenna, Worrell, Oye, and in midfield, Magella, Krula and Yates, not forgetting Scappa, who's a number 10 behind the front two. And the front two is going to be Gibbs, White and Johnson. As for Leicester, as you heard from Brendan Rodgers there, he said that it's going to be a good game for him, and they played them before and they know what's going to expect. They're currently 13 in the league, and they got knocked out, beaten by Newcastle 2-0 in the same cup as Forest was in, the EFL Cup, in the quarterfinals. So their team looks like this. It's looks to me like a 4-2-3-1 formation. Ward in goal, Thomas, Fayez, Amadi, Castine, the back four. Mendy and Ndidi, the Nigerian player, in the middle of the park. Alongside up front, the three in front of them is Barnes, Tillemans or Brighton. And guess what? Vardy starts. So I'm looking forward to this one, Chris. It's going to be a good game.
That's Pat Narrett keeping tabs on Nottingham Forest against Leicester City for Football Live this afternoon. Nottingham Forest looking to win consecutive Premier League matches for the first time this season, unbeaten in their last five at home league games as well at the City Ground. As we continue to go around the ground, incidentally, 6 of the bottom 8 teams in the Premier League in action this afternoon, including Wolves and West Ham, who meet at Molineux. Two sides who have struggled for points this season. And with the team news, we cross over to Matt Temporal here on Football Live.
Good afternoon. I'm here at Molineux, and it's fair to say that both West Ham and Wolves have had a lacklustre start to the season. Wolves obviously looking to pick up a bit of form now under new manager Julian Lopetegui. I'll give you the team news first. In goal for Wolves is Jose Sarr. We've got Nelson Semedo, Nathan Collins, Max Kilman and Hugo Bueno in defence. Mateus Nunes, Ruben Neves and João Moutinho in midfield. Juan Lee Chan and Daniel Podence on the wings. And a first start for Brazilian forward Mateus Cunha on loan from Atletico Madrid. For West Ham in goal, we've got Lucas Fabianski. Right back, we've got Vladimir Kofal, who is returning from an injury. Nayef Aguerd and Angelo Ogbonna in central defence. Aaron Creswell, Declan Rice and Thomas Soucek in centre midfield. Jared Bowen, Lucas Paquetá, Pablo Fornals and Mikel Antonio plays up front. The interesting news for West Ham is that Craig Dawson has been dropped from the squad because Wolves are actually interested in signing him.
Thanks very much, Matt. That's Matt Temporal covering Wolves against West Ham this afternoon. A relegation encounter between two clubs, as mentioned. A noticeable contrast, really, in their fortunes, if recent form is anything to go by, with Wolves more or less on the up at the moment and West Ham going in reverse. As previously highlighted, coverage too from the Championship this afternoon, where our featured game is at the Select Car Leasing Stadium as Reading entertain Queen's Park Rangers. Josh Bailey will be across that match for us here on Football Live. A very good afternoon to you, Josh.
Good afternoon, Chris, and a very interesting game we have in the Championship today as we come up against 10th v 11th. Both teams who are sliding down the table rapidly and are in much need of a win. The team for you today then will start off with the Royals, Reading, the home team. It's Joe Lumley in goal with the back three of Holmes, Sarr and Niedem. It's then a midfield of Loom with the front four of Hoynier, Hendrick, Hutchinson and Rahman. And then Thomas Ince and Andy Carroll leading the line. Andy Carroll actually missed a penalty in the reverse fixture this time in October. Then for QPR, then it's Dieng starting in goal with Lard, Dunn, Dickey and Powell. It's in a midfield three of Samuel, Field and also Eero Burnham. It's in a front three of Christopher Willock, Elias Chair and Tyler Roberts, with Lyndon Dykes leading the midfield and no Dieng today as well, the Nigerian centre-back, as he continues to be out with an injury. This game's going to be really interesting. Reading have a brilliant home form. They've actually got 24 points, 8 wins at home so far. So this should be a really interesting game coming up today on Football Live, starting at 3 o'clock and actually already underway.
That's Josh Bailey covering Reading against Queen's Park Rangers in the Championship. And the 4 p.m. Premier League kickoffs all underway here on Football Live. And we'll keep you up to date with the goals as they go in throughout the course of the afternoon. Now, we're just going to turn our attentions briefly to the Italian Serie A, because there was a result from last night. It was always going to be a bit of a humdinger of a game. Napoli against Juventus. I don't think many people could have foreseen how it would have transpired at the end of the game, though. Top of the table clash it was. Here's a match report now coming up on that huge clash from Football Live's Andrew Bonacore.
Napoli's Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen was the star of the show as they thrashed Juventus 5-1 at the Stadio Diego Maradona. The man in the mask was man of the match with 2 goals and an assist after a night where he had the Juve defenders, who had not conceded a goal for 8 matches, simply running scared. On 14 minutes, he pounced when Szczesny couldn't keep out a Kvaratskhelia shot. 19 minutes later, he set up his teammate for Napoli's second, and the pair combined again in the second half. The Georgian's beautiful cross found Osimhen's head, and he thundered it past the keeper to make it 4-1. He left the pitch to chants of his name as he put his seal on a famous win for Napoli and a potentially crucial one in the title fight. It finished Napoli 5, Juventus 1.
Indeed, and that result could be a pivotal moment in the season. A massive 3 points for Napoli last night to open up a 10-point gap at the top of the table. A brace, of course, for Victor Osimhen as well. Top goal scorer in Serie A with 12 now for the season. And Luciano Spalletti's side well on their way to what will be their first Scudetto in over 30 years. Milan and Inter, incidentally, both in action today as well as they look to close the gap. And whilst we're on the Italian Serie A, I can tell you that there's a match currently in progress there, and at half-time it's Cremonese 0, Monza 2. Cremonese 0, Monza 2 at half-time. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. So much to come up between now and 6 o'clock here with you all the way for the next couple of hours or so. And of course, a quick reminder that you can also get involved as well by posting your social media comments to us here on Football Live. And here's a reminder of just how you do that.
Don't forget to interact with us on social media here at Brila FM, at Brila FM 889 on Twitter, and on Facebook at 889 Brila FM.
Yeah, get involved. It would be great to hear your comments and your thoughts from all of the action that's taking place today. And of course, has taken place today. In case you weren't aware, Manchester United beat Manchester City in the big derby. 2-1 was the final score. City taking the lead through Jack Grealish on the hour mark, but United hitting back with goals, and a controversial first goal at that from Bruno Fernandes, and then a winner from Marcus Rashford 8 minutes from time. City at 5 points adrift of Arsenal at the top of the table. Let's go around the grounds now. Our first port of call is going to be this City ground, Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. Who's making the early running in that game? Pat Norrett.
Well, I can tell you, Chris, it's definitely Nottingham Forest, actually. They've got more possession of the ball, and Leicester seem to be sitting back. And it was a cross that came in, and Ryan Yates had a header just gone over the bar. So with, 5 minutes gone, Forest on top. It's Forest 0, Leicester 0.
So still goalless then at the moment at the City ground. As we continue to go around the grounds, let's check in for the first time since players got underway at the Amex Stadium. Brighton against Liverpool, and news of the early exchanges on that game from Jackson Cole. Jackson.
Well, there's not been too much by the way of clear-cut chances. Brighton, they're controlling possession at the moment. They've made a pretty good start, just knocking the ball around very nicely. There was a very nice moment before kickoff. Alexis McAllister, the midfielder, who was obviously part of Argentina's World Cup winning squad, he came onto the pitch on his own a few minutes before the rest of the players did, just to parade his World Cup winners medal, because this is his first home match back since he became a national hero. But yeah, it's about 7 minutes on the clock, and it's still Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
And Jackson, just briefly, we mentioned, of course, Leo Trossard in your preview. As we know, he's had a falling out with Roberto De Zerbi. Cast your mind back to when these two sides played a few months ago. Of course, he got that hat-trick in the 3-3 draw at Anfield. He's definitely on his way out, isn't he?
You'd think so. I mean, I've seen various reports linking him with a move to Tottenham. I think that was something that broke this week. Perhaps he could follow Graham Potter to Chelsea. I think, yeah, it does seem like his and Roberto De Zerbi's relationship has run its course, so I would not be surprised at all if Brighton were to offload one of their star players this month, because they've shown in the past that they're very good at selling players for good prices. So and that will enable them to just bring in 3 or 4 more good players that they can to develop into potentially world-class players. So I think Trossard leaving is something that would probably suit all parties.
Yeah, potential to do some very good business. Thanks very much, Jackson. That's Jackson Cole reporting on Brighton against Liverpool, where it remains goalless there. Let's check back in at Goodison Park. Everton against Southampton as we rejoin Jordan Mansour.
Well, Southampton have started the early stages with more possession. Everton sitting in their shape, waiting for an opportunity, which hasn't really come yet. But Goodison Park crowd, they seem wired up, they seem engaged, they seem ready to go either way, and that will depend on whether Everton can do what they haven't done since October and win at home. So it's still Everton 0, Southampton 0.
And Jordan, you can't underestimate how important this match is for both sides, with both teams in the bottom 3 at the start of play, but you suspect that for Everton especially, anything less than 3 points this afternoon could put paid to Frank Lampard's tenure at Goodison Park.
You're right. Anything less than 3 points today is a disaster for Everton. They have to win games like these. And we didn't really think we'd be saying at the start of the season that they have to win a game in January to, well, stay up. I mean, look, if they don't win today, then they're not necessarily going to go down. But you're right. Frank Lampard's job will be under serious scrutiny if they don't get 3 points today.
Southampton, of course, at the foot of the table going into this match, but 2 consecutive wins, of course. That incredible defeat of Manchester City in midweek in the EFL Cup to progress through to the semi-finals, and of course last weekend they dumped Crystal Palace out of the FA Cup as well. We'll keep you up to date with any developments in that game. That's of course at Goodison Park, Everton against Southampton. Let's just cross back to Molineux now for an update. Wolves against West Ham with about 9 minutes or so played in that game. We rejoin Matt Temporal.
It's been a bit of a lacklustre affair so far, it's fair to say. Some nice football from both teams, but not really any clear-cut chances. Hwang did have a good shot saved from a tight angle, and that was saved by Fabianski and went out for a corner. Jared Bowen scuffed a volley in the box went into the keeper's hands. But so far, no real clear-cut chances. But both teams look like they're quite happy with the way they're playing.
And Matt, just a word on the Wolves head coach, Julian Lopetegui. I mean, there's little doubt that there's been a marked improvement in Wolves' form since he was appointed back in November.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's quite a fiery character, and I think that might be something that Wolves have been missing in recent seasons. He's got a great pedigree. He's won the Europa League with Sevilla. He was the Spain manager, Real Madrid manager. He seems to be a bit of a coup for Wolves to get, and I'm sure that you'll see that in the results that they get in the next few games.
So we still await our first goal in the Premier League this afternoon. Let's just rattle through the scores for you again. Brighton 0, Liverpool 0, Everton 0, Southampton 0, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, Wolves 0, West Ham 0. We'll be around the grounds again very, very shortly here on Football Live. A couple of goals to tell you about in the Championship. It's now Luton 2, West Brom 0. A couple of early goals there for the Hatters, who, of course, vying for a playoff place this season, which of course they did last season as well, going out in the semi-final stage, but they are leading a much improved West Brom by 2-0 at the moment. And Sheffield United are 1-up at home to Stoke City as well. Sheffield United and Burnley as well, as it stands at the moment, certainly heading towards the top flight, the Premier League. Burnley top of the table, currently goalless in their game at the moment. Top of the table going into their match this afternoon on 57 points. Sheffield United 3 points further back as it stands on 54, with Luton back in third as it stands on 42 points. But the chasing pack are going to really have their work cut out to try and catch up with Burnley and Sheffield United in the Championship. Meanwhile, in the Scottish Premiership, it's Hibs 0, Dundee United 1, Motherwell 0, Ross County 0, and Ross and St Johnstone 0, Livingston 1. Let's head back to the City Ground. Nottingham Forest against Leicester City, and an opportunity, I believe, for Steve Cooper's side. Pat Norett.
Yeah, yes, again, it was Ryan Yates this time, found himself in the box, dummied the defender, took a shot which went past the left-hand post of the edge of the box. Now, the thing what's going on here is there's a great duel going on between Albrighton, who plays on the left, and Oriel for City, who plays on the Forest, who plays on the right-hand side. And 1-1 all the time, sort of like getting involved. One of them is going to get booked sooner or later. But at the moment, it's 13 gone, with Forest still on top for me. It's Forest 0, Leicester 0.
And who's looking the more likely to open the scoring at the Amex? Brighton against Liverpool. Let's rejoin Jackson Cole.
It's Brighton. Liverpool can barely get out of their own half. Cody Gakpo, the new signing, he's been totally isolated up front. And Brighton, they had two chances in quick succession. The first came to Solly March. He cut inside on the right and shot with his left foot, and it was cleared away from danger by Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't think it was going in, but Alexander-Arnold, he wasn't to know that. And then for the resulting corner, it was whipped in from the left. And Alexis McAllister, he rose highest, but his header was straight at Alisson. Brighton very much on top here, but it's still Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. Of course, we always cover action from the top flights of European football as well. Our focus also this afternoon is on the Portuguese Primeira Liga. We're covering Vizela against Maritimo and watching that game. And with the team news for Football Live, here's Jake Bowers.
Good afternoon. Like you said, it's Maritimo today taking on Vizela. Now, of course, Vizela sit 12th in the table at the moment, with Maritimo sitting 7th. They're going to square off, and if the Maritimo win, they will move automatically out of the relegation places. Now, Vizela have failed to secure, consecutive wins for the first time since October, as they suffered 2-1 defeat last Friday. With 18 points from 15 matches, Felipe's men are 12th, like we said, but could rise as high as 8th. So today, a win would be vital for them. Maritimo, on the other hand, continued their surge of form as they were one of the only teams this season to get a win over Ruben Amorim's team. That's right, they beat Sporting with a 1-0 victory as Claudio Wink scored a goal. We're looking at the form for both teams. It's been patchy, to say the least. Only a couple of wins each from 5 games. So we'll see how that plays out. The Vizela starting 11, we have Buntic in goal, with Julião, Wilson, Jesus Santos, Kiki in defence, with Claudemir Gutso as holding midfielders. Maria, Samu, Giko and Osmazic make up the front line as he has scored a couple of goals this season. For Maritimo, we have Khan in goal with Claudio Wink starting right back. Mosquera is playing centre back alongside Victor Costa and Mateus Costa making up the back line. We have Pereira, Brito, Alfonso and Shadas making up the midfield with Ramirez and Vidijal up front. We're going to see a scruffy game, I think. Both teams will want to win. One team is riding high on confidence after beating Sporting. We'll see how that plays out. Kick off soon.
And Jake, just briefly, you just mentioned it, Maritimo picking up that really unexpected win against Sporting last weekend. It was an incredible result. Unbeaten in 2 now, and having struggled this season, today's result against Vizela will be a real true indicator, I think, as to whether they can turn their fortunes around this season.
Absolutely. It's always good when you beat a big team, the confidence can surge you forward. So we'll hope they'll bring that into this game and not take this lightly, because the season is about halfway through. However, these are the games that count, and if they can get a win today, that will surely see their confidence rise more and more, and hopefully they'll avoid that relegation.
That's Jake Bowers covering Vizela against Maritimo in the Portuguese Primeira Liga here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's head back to the City Ground, where there's been a few chances already in that game. Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. Here's Pat Narett.
Yes, you play, we play now. Like I said to you earlier when you came to me, I thought it was a cagey affair. Nice, not. But Mark Albrighton causing a lot of problems on the left-hand side, like when you spoke last time. I did say a duel between him and Aurea. He fired a cross into the box. Harvey Barnes met it, and his shot just went wide. So it's looking, you play, we play. Great game to watch. 16 gone. It's Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0.
And Pat, just a word on Leicester City. It's been an up and down season, hasn't it, really? They were knocked out of the EFL Cup in midweek after losing to Newcastle. Former Nottingham Forest player turned pundit Steve Stone suggested in the week that the Foxes have too much quality to be worried about relegation. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I mean, if you look at their midfield today, they've got really strong 2 in the middle of the park. Brendan Rodgers likes to build up the play from the back, so he's not going to hump it forward and chase it. I know he's got Vardy there, but to be honest, Vardy hasn't been mentioned once when I watched him. Hasn't got the ball once today, but sometimes obviously they look for when they're playing a counter. No, I think he's right. They've got the players to do it, and they play passing games. They're nice to watch, and I think that's how he's going to play. He's not going to change his mind. If he loses the game, he's never going to moan. We wouldn't need to play that way, we need to play this way. But I think he's right. I think it's a good game for him today. And I think if he comes out of this with points shared, it'd be good for both teams. So with 17 gone, it's still Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0.
Still goalless there, and of course for Forest, a great result for them on Wednesday when they beat Wolves on penalties to progress through to the EFL Cup semi-finals as well. They meet Manchester United next. And sometimes, I guess, a good run can have a positive effect on the club if they're struggling in the league. But currently goalless, as you heard there from Pat Narett, Nottingham Forest against Leicester. We still await our first goal in the Premier League this afternoon. Let's just get you up to date with a few other latest scores from around abouts in La Liga. It finished earlier on today. Valladolid 0. Rayo Vallecano 1. That is a final score, and they're into the 4th minute. Girona against Sevilla, and it's currently goalless in that game. And in the Nigerian Premier League, Enugu against Abia Warriors, that was postponed. There is one match currently underway into the 16th minute, where it's Nasarawa 0 and Yimba 0. So we'll keep you up to date with the news from that game throughout the course of the programme here on Football Live on Brila FM. Meanwhile, in the Championship, another goal to tell you about. Bristol City 1, Birmingham 0 is the latest score there. Preston 0, Norwich 2. Now, Norwich have been in freefall in recent weeks, but they're doing well this afternoon. 2 up at the moment, away to Preston. Timu Puki got the first goal for Norwich this afternoon, and Kieran Dow has just added a second, so they lead at Preston by 2-0. And let's just recap the other latest scores where there have been goals in the Championship this afternoon. Luton 2, West Brom 0, and Sheffield United 1, Stoke 0. Sunderland are already down to 10 men in their game. Luke O'Neill has been sent off, so Sunderland down to 10 men. It's currently goalless. Sunderland 0, Swansea 0. So you're up to date with all the latest scores in the Championship. We'll be around the grounds very, very shortly once again here on Football Live. But no goals in any of the featured matches that we are covering in the Premier League this afternoon. Brighton 0, Liverpool 0, Everton 0, Southampton 0, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, and Wolves 0, West Ham 0. Plenty of action, of course, coming up as well tomorrow on Sunday. And we'll hear about that very, very shortly.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Barry Swain here, and I will be back on Football Live on Brila FM tomorrow afternoon for an extended show which starts at 2:45 in the afternoon. We've got some absolutely brilliant football action to look forward to. 2 earlier kickoffs in the Premier League, Newcastle against Fulham, Chelsea against Crystal Palace, and then we move on to the big London derby, the North London derby, the London derby of all derbies. It's Tottenham Hotspur against Arsenal from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we will keep a very close eye on that. We'll also have feature games in Portugal, in the Netherlands, in Italy and in France. An absolutely action-packed afternoon. 4 hours of football tomorrow afternoon with myself, Barry Swain, and our brilliant team of reporters from 2:45 in the afternoon. We hope you can join us then.
Yep, that's an extended programme with your host Barry Swain tomorrow on Football Live, so we look forward to that. Let's go around the grounds once again now here on Football Live as we cover the featured action taking place in the Premier League this afternoon. Let's just check back in now at the Amex. Brighton against Liverpool, and it was Brighton who had been creating most of the early chances in that game. Jackson Cole.
Yeah, and they still are. Brighton are very much on top in this encounter so far. Kaoru Mitoma, another breakout star for Brighton. He's looked particularly dangerous. In fact, a short time ago, Joel Matip got booked for just pushing him over to the ground. And a couple of minutes before that, Trent Alexander-Arnold, he was penalised for pulling Mitoma down to the floor just outside the box after Mitoma got the wrong side of him. Alisson Becker, the Liverpool goalkeeper, he's just receiving a little bit of treatment. He was holding the back of his head. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but that would be a major concern for Liverpool if he were to go off, because he's been one of their consistently good players this season. But yeah, about 22 minutes on the clock. It is still Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
And Jackson, just briefly, obviously Liverpool have had a really disappointing season, as we know by their standards. 7 points adrift of the top 4 going into this game, and their season dealt a real hammer blow, wasn't it, last weekend with the loss of Virgil van Dijk to a hamstring injury that's expected to keep him out for several weeks.
Yes, it's a massive blow indeed, but I think even Virgil van Dijk hasn't been the player that we've come to, or Liverpool fans have come to know and love over the past few years. I think the difference between these two sides at the moment is Brighton are playing like a side who are hugely confident in their ability, and Liverpool just aren't. And it's no surprise, really. Liverpool have lost 3 of their last 7 in the Premier League. I mentioned how they've already dropped more points in the Premier League this season than they did in the whole of last season. They've already dropped 23 points. So I think, Jurgen Klopp would never admit it, but I think he would take a draw this afternoon, especially with the way the game's going at the moment.
How would you explain their decline this season, Jackson? Obviously, they lost Sadio Mane, as we know, but bearing in mind last campaign, they won both domestic cup competitions and were Premier League runners-up as well.
Yeah, it's very hard to explain. When they were going for the quadruple last season, I was kind of surprised because I watched them quite a lot, and they did seem like quite a light squad, but yeah, it's hard to put your finger on. I think a lot of the senior players who've been a big part of their success in recent years are getting a bit older. I also think Liverpool are in a team in transition as a result of that, and they're also trying to find almost a new way to play. I think they're much more focused on retaining the ball these days rather than pressing and hassling opponents. I don't think they're as energetic as they used to be. So it's never one thing. It's always a combination of things. And I think maybe in about 2 seasons' time, if Jurgen Klopp is still there, Liverpool could be title contenders. But Newcastle are on the up. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And Manchester City, they'll always be there and thereabouts. And as we saw earlier this afternoon, Manchester United, maybe they're back as well. And Arsenal, well, they're looking like they're going to win the Premier League. So it could be harder than ever to actually make an impact in the Premier League in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. We could have 3, possibly 4 teams competing for the title over the course of the next few seasons. Thanks very much, Jackson. That's Jackson Cole reporting on Brighton against Liverpool, where it remains goalless. Incidentally, Liverpool have dropped 23 points in their 17 Premier League matches this season, which is already one more than their total last season. Currently goalless at the Amex. Let's check back in with Jordan Mansour, who's keeping tabs on Everton against Southampton for Football Live. Jordan.
Yes, so Everton started to work their way back into the game, and they're starting to impose themselves a bit more, and they actually had the best chance of the game. So Onana switched the ball over to Mikalenko, who's been able to find himself quite a lot of space this game, and I think Everton's main threat is coming down the left side with him linking up with Gray, and this time incidentally he played the ball into Damari Gray, but he was pushed just too far wide and blazed it over the bar. But Everton, they're definitely looking threatening down the left. They're starting to impose themselves on the game a lot more, so it's looking a bit more of an even affair than it was in the first 15 minutes, but still Everton 0, Southampton 0.
And Jordan, just looking at Everton's home record this season, they've accumulated just 8 points from a possible 27. That is absolutely disastrous, and it's got to be a massive cause for concern for their supporters.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just know that the Everton faithful, they can be your best friend or they can be your worst enemy. And Everton will be hoping that they can get the crowd on their side today and try and improve on that disastrous record.
Where it's currently goalless, Everton 0, Southampton 0. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM as we cross back to the match at Molineux. Wolves against West Ham, 2 other sides that are struggling this season. And who's making the running in this game? Matt Temporal.
It's fair to say that Wolves are the most attacking team in the game. They've been playing some nice football, but so have West Ham. It's just been a little bit cagey by the two teams. It's clear why these two teams are amongst the lowest scorers in the Premier League so far, and it's just a game that needs a goal to lighten it up, I think. But it's still Wolves 0, West Ham 0.
So still goalless then at Molineux. Let's dip down a division now, because of course we are covering. We have a featured match in the Championship as well this afternoon. It's Reading against Queen's Park Rangers, and let's get an update on that game from Josh Bailey.
Yes, hello Chris. Not much to report so far in this game. Very tit for tat. QPR and Reading both having a little bit of possessions. It's 45% possession for Reading, 55% for QPR. So very even so far. A lot of challenges. Very ferocious game, but not much quality in the final third. And that's why going into half hour in this game, it's Reading 0, QPR 0.
And Josh, you've got to love the Championship, haven't you? Because this is an encounter between two sides placed in mid-table before start of play. QPR 12th, Reading 13th, but only 3 points outside the playoff position. So a win today for either side, and that could propel them right up into the top half on the fringes of the playoffs. And as I say, that pretty much sums up the EFL Championship, doesn't it?
I mean, the Championship is a brilliant league. I think is it Coventry and West Brom, who were in the relegation zone a couple of months ago going into kind of October, and now they're up in 10th and 14th. So, it's such a close league. A win is so important for both these sides. Both teams that were so good earlier on in the season have kind of slipped away in terms of their quality and how well they're doing in the league. So one win could really spark that, and we'll see how this game goes as we go into half an hour. So far, it's Reading 0, QPR 0.
Another couple of goals to tell you about in the Championship. It's now Hull 0, Huddersfield 1, and Bristol City 2, Birmingham 0. And news coming in from a goal in our feature match in the Championship. And I can tell you that Reading have taken the lead in that game. It is now Reading 1, Queen's Park Rangers 0. Just as we left Josh Bailey there, Reading have taken the lead. Jeff Hendrick on the score sheet will be back with Josh for news of that goal very, very shortly. But it's Reading who have broken the deadlock. Reading 1, Queen's Park Rangers 0. And as I say, back with Josh for details of that goal very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brila FM. Just, of course, a reminder that in just over 20 minutes' time or so, we'll be back with our colleagues in Nigeria. That will be FJ and the team for all of your social media comments. That's in just over 20 minutes' time or so, as we head back to the Select Car Leasing Stadium for news of that goal. Reading against Queen's Park Rangers. Josh Bailey.
Just have you left me, Chris? Jeff Hendrick has scored a wonder goal out of nowhere. It's a perfect volley from wrong range, and the ball just flew into the bottom left-hand corner. What a finish, and what a way to put Reading 1-0 up in this game. It's Reading 1, QPR 0.
So Reading it is then who have opened their account in that game. Any further developments, we will bring them to you here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's just recap the latest scores again in the Championship, where there have been plenty of goals this afternoon. Incidentally, earlier on today in the early kickoff, it finished Rotherham 4, Blackburn 0. That's a big win for Rotherham, who have been struggling in recent weeks, and a big 3 points that just edges them away from the bottom three in the table. As for Blackburn, incredibly, yet to draw a game this season. They've won 14, lost 13. They've lost again today, but still currently fourth in the Championship as it stands. Other latest scores for you in the 4 p.m. kickoffs. Bristol City 2, Birmingham 0, Burnley 0, Coventry 0, Cardiff 0, Wigan 0, Hull 0, Huddersfield 1, Luton still 2-0 up at home to West Brom. Middlesbrough 0, Millwall 0. That's a big game this afternoon between two sides on the fringes of the Championship playoffs. Elsewhere in the Championship, Norwich have now extended their lead. What a first half they're having. It's now Preston 0, Norwich 3, Reading 1, Queen's Park Rangers 0, as we just heard. Sheffield United still 1-0 up at home to Stoke. Sunderland 0, Swansea 0. Sunderland down to 10 men. And Watford 0, Blackpool 0. They are all the latest scores for you in the Championship. Let's head back to the Amex Stadium for news of Brighton against Liverpool. Jackson Cole.
Yes, Chris, it's been an absolutely manic minute with both sides having a glorious chance each. The first one came to Liverpool. Mohamed Salah, he found some space down the right. He crossed it in. It was spilt by Robert Sanchez, and then Salah retrieved the ball, and then there was a collision between him and the Brighton goalkeeper. Replays do show that Sanchez did just about get on to the ball, and then Gakpo, he fired it across to Oxlade-Chamberlain, who put it just wide. And then about 30 seconds later, Mitoma, who's been Brighton's danger man so far, he was slipped in on the inside, and then he was through on goal, but he poked it just wide. I think he should have done a lot better. So this game has really gone up a gear in the last couple of minutes, but it's still Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
Still goalless at the Amex. Is it still goalless at Goodison Park? Everton against Southampton. Jordan Mansour.
Yes, it is still goalless, but Southampton has managed to carve out the best chances we've seen so far in this cagey affair. And they actually moved the ball really nicely, and they ended up being face-to-face with Everton's backpedaling vulnerable defence. And the ball was dipped towards the top left corner. It looked like it might go in. It looked like it might land right on the head of Che Adams, but it managed to just sail over his head. And then from the resulting corner, Salisu fired his free header straight at Jordan Pickford. So Everton, looking a little bit uncertain here, and I think this game is ready to burst into life at any moment. It just needs that one catalyst, that one, I say moment of quality, but it's more likely to be a mistake with these two sides. But both teams still looking for the breakthrough. It's still 0-0.
Still goalless then at Goodison Park. We'll be around the Premier League grounds very, very shortly once again here on Football Live. Let's just give you some latest scores from the Scottish Premiership. Hibs 1, Dundee United 2 is now the latest score in that game, and Motherwell 0, Ross County 0, and St Johnstone 0, Livingston 2 in the Scottish Premiership. I can tell you that there has been a goal in our featured match in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. We're covering Vizela against Maritimo. It's a very early goal there, and the hosts have gone in front in that game. Vizela 1, Maritimo 0. Mulitin Osmajic has scored for Vizela in that game. So they lead by a 1-0, and we'll be across with our reporter Jake Bowers for news of that goal straight away. Jake.
What a start. We thought this game would produce something, and there it does in the first few minutes. But Salah take the lead against Maritimo. It was a mistake in the Maritimo midfield which led to a break from Vizela, a ball across the box for a Osmasic waiting in the back corner, and he slots it home for an easy 1-0. I'm sure the Maritimo players were a bit frustrated with that, so they went straight to the referee looking for any offsides or a bit of mercy, I believe, because that is not the best way to start a game. We'll see how they bounce back, but as of now, it's Vizela 1, Maritimo 0.
So Vizela, a goal to the good in that game. A few other latest scores to give you about in the Italian Serie A. It's now Cremonese 1, Monza 3, with a little under 15 minutes remaining in that game. And in the MPFL, it's now Nasarawa 0, Enyimba 1. That goal just a couple of minutes ago. So Enyimba, a goal to the good in that game in the Nigerian Premier League. And of course, it's a big goal as well. As it stands at the moment, they would be sitting third in the table. But of course, it is a first game of the season. There has been, believe it or not, a second goal in our feature match in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. And the goals are going in left, right and centre there at the moment. What a start for Vizela. Now leading by 2-0 in that game. And we'll be across to Jake Bowers once again. We haven't got any Premier League goals this afternoon. Forget about that. But the goals are going in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. It's now Vizela 2, Maritimo 0. Let's cross back to Jake Bowers for news of that second goal. Jake.
Just as we were saying, 1-0 was a good start. They've doubled their lead, and Osmasic has doubled his goal tally for the season with another goal. It's yet again another mistake this early on from Maritimo. They're trying to play the ball out from the back, goes into midfield, but then unfortunately it is cut out by Vizela, who then pass it for a very straightforward goal for Osmasic, who now scores again, meaning it is 2-0 to Vizela. That's Vizela 2, Maritimo 0. Keep your eyes on this one.
And Maritimo, of course, struggling second from bottom in the table before the start of play on 10 points, some 4 points adrift of safety as it stands. Any further goal news from that game, we'll bring it to you here on Football Live on Brila FM as we close in on half-time in the 4 Premier League matches that we are covering here on Football Live this afternoon. No goals to tell you about as far as I'm aware. Let's go around the grounds once again and check back in, first of all, at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. Here's Pat Narrett.
Yeah, it's still even Stevens with 37 gone now, and Leicester having more the possession, but not really clear chances. The only thing, one thing I can tell you, Chris, is that the wind's very strong here because there was a corner, or Brighton tried to take it, and the wind just blew the ball off the spot. So at the moment, 38 gone. It's Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0.
So still goalless there in that game. I can tell you that there has been a goal somewhere or another. I'm just trying to get confirmation of that at the moment. No, unfortunately, we're still awaiting our first goal in the Premier League. I don't know, perhaps it may have come at the Amex. Brighton against Liverpool. Let's rejoin Jackson Cole.
Still goalless at the Amex Stadium, but both sides are now starting to get into this game. Liverpool have been much better in the last 10 minutes. I mentioned earlier, Salah had that penalty appeal turned down, but Robert Sanchez, he did just get the ball, and then a few moments later, Mitoma had that great chance when he was played through on goal, but poked the ball just wide. I mentioned a bit earlier how Alisson was receiving treatment for a head injury, but he seems to be okay. He's still on the pitch now. Jordan Henderson, he was booked a little earlier for a trip on Moises Caicedo, but right now it's still Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
As we continue to go around the grounds here on Football Live on Brila FM, let's head back to Molineux. Wolves against West Ham for the latest on that game. Matt Temporal.
It's still 0-0 here at Molineux. It's a very, very dull affair. Not many chances at all. Both teams, as I said, both teams are playing nice football, but it just needs a moment of brilliance or any moment of quality at all just to set this game alight. It seems like it would be Wolves. If it was one of the two teams, it would be Wolves. West Ham seem to be happy to sit back, but it's still Wolves 0, West Ham 0.
we have our first goal in the Premier League this afternoon. And it's come at Goodison Park. It is now Everton 1, Southampton 0. Frank Lampard's side have broken the deadlock some 6 minutes or so before half-time there. Amadou Onana has scored and opened their account. It's now Everton 1, Southampton 0. We will be joining Jordan Mansour again very, very shortly here on Brila FM for news of that goal. But Everton are now a goal to the good at home to Everton. Elsewhere, it remains goalless. Brighton 0, Liverpool 0, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, and Wolves 0, West Ham 0 in the other matches that we are covering this afternoon here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's just check back in with Josh Bailey, who's keeping tabs on our featured match in the Championship. Reading against Queen's Park Rangers. Reading still a goal to the good in that game. Josh.
Reading are still a goal to the good, but QPR looking to hit back straight away as we go into half-time here. It was a shot from Lyndon Dykes as he picked up the ball in space from inside the penalty area and just sent a shot inches wide of the left post. In the end, the goal went out for play, and it was a Reading goal kick, but it was really close by QPR, and they're knocking on that door, trying to get an equaliser before half-time. 40 minutes gone here. It's Reading 1, QPR 0.
So Reading still a goal up in that game. Let's just give you a couple of other goals in the Championship. West Brom have reduced the deficit now at Kenilworth Road. It's Luton 2, West Brom 1 in that game. And Birmingham have pulled a goal back at Bristol City. Bristol City 2, Birmingham 1, the latest score there. Sheffield United heading towards the Premier League now 2-0 up at home to Stoke. Penalty news at Brighton. I believe we'll be crossing back to Jackson Cole for news of that very shortly, but news just coming through in my earpiece that Brighton have been awarded a penalty, I suspect, but we will confirm that very, very shortly for you here on Football Live on Brila FM. We will cross, as I say, to Jackson very, very shortly for news of that just as soon as we possibly can. We'll keep you up to date on developments in that game, but Brighton have been awarded a penalty at the Amex against Liverpool. News of that to follow. Just one goal so far in the Premier League, which we just heard about, of course, Everton against Southampton. We will be crossing back to Jordan Mansour very, very shortly for news of that goal for Everton, which, of course, was scored by Amadou Onana just a couple of minutes ago. They lead Southampton by a goal to nil. Southampton, of course, had won the last couple of games and been the better of the sides when it comes to form over the last 2 or 3 games or so. But Everton, what a big goal that is for them. Let's, in fact, cross back to Jordan Mansour for news of that goal. Everton against Southampton here on Football Live.
And Everton have got the breakthrough here at Goodison Park. And it's 1-0. Andre Onana scores the header. And, well, you would have thought that the goal would come from a set piece, because every time each side has got in and around the penalty box, they've just lacked that bit of quality. So the corner came in, it was Damari Gray who won the corner, made space for a cross, managed to just sneak it in, but the ball went out for a corner. And he swung the ball in. Andre Onana rose above everyone else to just head it back from where it came from. And Everton have got the crucial opener. It's Everton 1, Southampton 0.
Everton a goal up. I can tell you that penalty was not awarded to Brighton. Let's hear all about that from our reporter Jackson Cole. Jackson.
Yeah, major let-off for Liverpool. Brighton thought they had a penalty when Solly March is played through and is brought down by Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson. Took his legs away as he tried to slide for the ball with his hand. But the VAR came to Liverpool's rescue, and it was offside when March received the ball, or when the ball was played to March. So Liverpool have got away with it. The penalty has been overturned by the referee. So just before half-time, it's Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
His goal is there, but there's been another goal in our feature match in the Championship, where Reading have now extended their lead. It's Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 0. Back with Josh Bailey for news of that goal very, very shortly. But just to confirm, Brighton 0, Liverpool 0. It remains Everton 1, Southampton 0, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, and Wolves 0, West Ham 0 as we approach the half-time interval. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. And just a quick reminder, of course, that you can contact us throughout the rest of the programme via social media. And here's a quick reminder how.
Don't forget to interact with us on social media here at Brila FM, at Brila FM 889 on Twitter, and on Facebook at 889 Brila FM.
And we'll be crossing over to FJ and the team in Nigeria for all of your comments in around about 7 minutes time or so here on Football Live. Let's head then back to the Championship for news of that second goal for the Royals. Reading against Queen's Park Rangers. Josh Bailey.
It's Reading 2, QPR 0, and it's a Jeff Hendrick double for the Royals. The ball's bouncing around in the QPR penalty area. Someone needed to get onto the end to it, and it was Jeff Hendrick who did it. He pounced on the rebound, firing it into the bottom left-hand corner, and the score is now Reading 2, QPR 0, Royals in Dreamland.
So Reading taking control of that game, and Queen's Park Rangers, who started the season so well, in fact, as well. They were hovering around the playoff positions inside the first couple of months or so of the Championship season. Absolutely in free fall at the moment. They failed to score in 4 of their last 5 away fixtures, and heading down the Championship table at present, trailing now at Reading by 2-0. Let's continue to go around the grounds in the Premier League and check back in at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest, Leicester City as we approach half-time. Pat Narrett.
Yeah, it seems like they're both settled. I think what they're trying to not to lose the game, both teams. Not many clear chances, with a couple by Yes, of course, and then Harvey Barnes causing havoc on the left-hand side. And I think it's also what Leicester are trying to do is to get balls into the box, which is not their style, but for some reason they're doing that today. But with 1 minute of extra time to play, it's still with Forest 0, Leicester 0.
And next to Molineux, has the deadlock been broken in that game? Wolves against West Ham. Matt Temporal.
I think we'll be waiting quite a while for the deadlock to be broken in this game, the way it's going. We're approaching half-time. There hasn't been any change in the quality of the football or any chances created. Wolves definitely on top. West Ham can be leapfrogged by Wolves if Wolves win this game. So it seems like West Ham will just be happy to sit back and take the draw and hope for some action on the counter-attack. But it's still Wolves 0, West Ham 0.
Still goalless there. A real decline in the fortunes of West Ham. And this season, they finished 7th and 6th in the previous 2 Premier League campaigns under David Moyes. But it's all gone horribly, horribly wrong this season. We're approaching half-time then in the Premier League. Let's just quickly recap the latest scores that we have for you before we get the half-time reports. Brighton 0, Liverpool 0, Everton 1, Southampton 0. Amadou Onana with the goal for Everton. Goalless Nottingham Forest against Leicester. And it's Wolves 0, West Ham 0, as you just heard. Latest scores for you in the Nigerian Premier League and the MPFL. And Yimba are now 2 up at Nasarawa as they approach half-time in that game. They led by 2-0 there. In the Championship, Bristol City 2, Birmingham 1, Burnley 0, Coventry 0. That's half-time. Cardiff 0, Wigan 0, Hull 0, Huddersfield 1, Luton 2, West Brom 1. Also half-time in that game now. It's half-time 2 at the Riverside, Middlesbrough against Millwall, where it is goalless. Preston 0, Norwich 3, Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 0, as we know. Sheffield United 2, Stoke 1. Stoke have pulled a goal back there. It's half-time at the Stadium of Light. Sunderland 0, Swansea 0. Sunderland down to 10 men. And Watford 0, Blackpool 0, the latest score from Vicarage Road. The half-time whistle has blown at Molineux. Wolves against West Ham. Let's get a half-time report now from Football Live reporter Matthew Temporal.
Well, it's been a lacklustre game from the start. There wasn't really any clear-cut chances. The ball did break for Hwang in the box, but his shot from a very tight angle was saved early on by Lucas Fabianski. A ball was clipped into the box by West Ham, and Jared Bowen hit a volley, but he scuffed the finish a little bit, just rolled into the hands of Jose Sarr. Apart from those 2 chances, it's been very, very lacklustre, to be fair. But it seems that both teams are figuring each other out, and of course both teams have been struggling for goals recently, but 0-0 at half time. Let's hope that the second half can produce something a little bit better.
So goalless then at the break at Molineux. Latest scores in the Scottish Premiership. They're approaching half-time. Hibs against Dundee United, and Dundee United still 2-1 up at the moment. And these are both half-time scores in the Scottish Premiership. Motherwell 0, Ross County 0, and St Johnstone 0, Livingston 3. In Italian Serie A, they're approaching full-time. What a game this is. Cremonese 2, Monza 3, with just a few minutes remaining of time added on in that game. We'll be crossing back to Jake Bowes very shortly for an update on Vizela against Maritimo. That's our featured match in the Portuguese Primeira Liga this afternoon. The halftime whistle's gone at the Amex. Brighton against Liverpool. Jackson Cole.
Yeah, 0-0 at half-time. On the face of it, there hasn't been much to talk about, but this clash at the Amex Stadium has been an intriguing spectacle. The home side have been better by some distance, and they thought they'd won a penalty just before the break when Alisson brought down Solly March. However, the decision was overturned as VAR spotted that March was in fact offside when the ball was played to him. Kaoru Matoma has been Brighton's danger man so far, and he should have put them in front. He could only poke a shot from the left wide with only Alisson to beat. This came seconds after Liverpool had a faint penalty appeal turned down when Mohamed Salah fell inside the box. Elsewhere, March had a shot cleared away from danger by Trent Alexander-Arnold, while Alexis McAllister went close to the header. I saw a great shot of Jurgen Klopp just now, looking furious with what he was seeing from his players, but he'll be delighted Liverpool is still in this game at the moment. It's Brighton 0, Liverpool 0.
So 0-0 then at the Amex Stadium, but plenty of chances for Brighton in that first half, as described there by Jackson Cole. And of course, that penalty appeal as well following a VR decision. It wasn't given, but goalless at the Amex. Half-time whistle has gone at Goodison Park, where it's Everton 1, Southampton 0. And half-time also at the City Ground, where at the break it is goalless, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester City 0. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM, and coming up next we head back to FJ and the team in Nigeria for all of your social media comments on all the action that's taking place this weekend. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM with Chris Baldwin. Yes, indeed. This is Football Live. Welcome back. Many thanks to FJ and the crew in Nigeria with all of your social media comments, and most of the comments concerning that Manchester derby earlier on today, and particularly the controversy surrounding that opening goal for Manchester United, who of course won by 2-1 earlier on today. But a lot of unhappy people concerning that United goal. As it stands at the moment, United up to third in the table on 38 points following that victory against Manchester City, who remain 5 points, of course, behind Arsenal, who play in the big 193rd North London derby against Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium tomorrow afternoon, which you can catch, of course, here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's just go around the grounds and tie up a few half-time reports here on Football Live. First port of call will be Goodison Park, Everton against Southampton.
Yeah, so it's been quite an even affair with not too much to report on. I think the theme of the game has been misplaced passes, wasted opportunities, instability in defensive shape. So it's sort of made for a game where there's the opportunity for either team to capitalise on the other's lack of structure. However, this game has been symptomatic of two teams low on confidence, bereft of quality. So we've seen it off pop shots, we've seen some decent opportunities coming from set pieces, and that is where Everton found the all-important breakthrough. It was a Amadou ball into the box, and an Amadou Onana header past Bozanu, who then was called into action only moments later when Everton launched attack on Southampton's goal for probably the second time in the game. So Everton will be looking to start the second half how they ended the first, with that goal slightly more on top of the end of the first half, but overall a game rather low on quality. But we'll see what happens in the second half. Southampton by no means out of this game. They beat Manchester City in the week, so I'm sure they still have that in the back of their minds. There's still a lot to do in this game. Everton 1, Southampton 0, half-time.
Next to the City Ground, Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. Pat Norrit.
Yeah, I would say it's an even game in the first half. Not really many clear chances. Both teams, I'm wondering whether they're trying to win this game, because looking at the table, you've got, at the moment as it stands, Leicester are 13, 14 for Everton, and Nottingham Forest 15. They're all 18 points. So you would think that at least, because Everton winning at the moment, they're on 18. Nottingham Forest and Leicester's on 18. So you would think at least one of them will say, look, can we win this game? At least we get 3 points on the board to get away, to get closer to Crystal Palace. But as it stands at the moment, the first half, I would say, even affair. Forest had about 3 corners. Leicester had 5 corners. Nothing came of it. Let's hope in the second half we'll see more goal chances. But I think that maybe both managers thinking, you know what, 0-0 might not be a bad result for us. So we're looking forward to the second half.
Into the Championship we go. Reading comfortably in control against Queen's Park Rangers at half-time. Here's Josh Bailey.
Yes, and they lead 2-0 at the break thanks to a double from Jeff Hendrick. Both goals on the opposite side of spectrum in terms of talent and skill. One was a volley from just outside the area. A fantastic finish into the bottom left-hand corner. And he found the bottom left-hand corner once again just 10 minutes later. This time it was a rebound, a little bit less skill, but nonetheless not less important for Reading, as it now means they have a 2-goal lead going to half-time. It's Reading 2, QPR 0.
And the second half's just about getting underway then in our featured matches here on Football Live this afternoon. Of course, those 4 matches in the Premier League and that 1 game in the Championship as well. But we are also featuring action in the Portuguese Primeira Liga this afternoon. It was a barnstorming start from Vizela against Maritimo. The last time we were with Jake Bowers.
Yes, the last time you checked in with me, Vizela had scored their second in 5 minutes with Osmasic getting the brace early on. However, the game has taken a bit of a turn now, actually. Maritimo have come more back into the game. They're dominating possession. They're dominating their passing. They're getting a lot more crosses in, 13, in fact. So Vizela's 2. But they just need to make that count. They've only had 1 shot, and it not being on target isn't helping. But the game's looking a bit more even now after a crazy 5 minutes. Let's hope we get more action during the game. However, as it stands, it's Vizela 2, Maritimo 0.
Half-time in the Nigerian Premier League. It's Nasarawa 0, Enyimba 2. That is the scoreline at half-time. Other latest scores to give you in the, where do we go? In French League 1, they're just underway. Lens against Auxerre. They're into the 3rd minute in that game. It's currently goalless at the moment. And also in Spanish La Liga, latest score for your half-time score, in fact, is Girona 0, Sevilla 1. That is at half-time. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM, so plenty of action still to come here right the way between now and 6 o'clock. Make sure you don't go anywhere at all. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest goal news from, of course, the Premier League, the Championship, the Scottish Premiership, and also the major leagues around Europe as well. You won't miss a thing here on Football Live. Reminder, of course, that we will be back tomorrow afternoon as well with plenty to look forward to. Of course, the big standout game is at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 5:30 p.m. kickoff, Tottenham against Arsenal, and 2 other matches taking place tomorrow. Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Chelsea in free fall at the moment, and Newcastle, they entertain Fulham as well at St James's Park tomorrow afternoon. Both of those games kicking off at 3 p.m. And a reminder, of course, the 6:30 p.m. kickoff this afternoon, Brentford against Bournemouth. So kicking off in just under an hour and a half's time. Also, Brentford on a 6-game unbeaten run in the Premier League at the moment. I can tell you there's been an early second half goal at the Amex Stadium. And Brighton have taken the lead against Liverpool. It is now Brighton 1, Liverpool 0. A very early goal in the second half there for the Seagulls. Confirmation of the goal scorer very, very shortly. And further goal news to tell you about from Molineux. Wolverhampton Wanderers have broken the deadlock in that game. So the first half, we have only 1 goal to tell you about. That was at Goodison Park. But what a start to the second halves then at the Amex and at Molineux, where it's now Brighton 1, Liverpool 0. And it is also Wolves 1, West Ham 0. We will be getting news from of those 2 goals very, very shortly here on Football Live. And further goal news from Goodison Park. My eyes don't deceive me. It's now Everton 1, Southampton 1 at Goodison Park. The Saints are back on level terms in that game. So after a very, very quiet opening 45 minutes, really, in each of those matches, what a start to the second halves. Let's go around the grounds and hear news of those goals. Let's first of all check in at Molineux. Wolves against West Ham. Here's Matt Temporal.
Finally, a bit of action in this game. It started actually from a West Ham corner. So West Ham hit the corner in. It was cleared by the Wolves defence. A break by Nelson Semedo down the right-hand side. He plays it inside to Mateus Nunes. Crosses the ball into the box. A little deflection, a bit of luck that falls into the path of Daniel Podence, who lashes a volley into the bottom corner. And it's Wolves 1, West Ham United 0.
So Wolves a goal to the good. Let's get news of that goal for Brighton at the Amex against Liverpool. Jackson Cole.
Yes, it's Brighton 1, Liverpool 0, and the goal's been scored by Solly March. The man who thought he'd won the penalty just before half-time, before the decision was overturned, has given Brighton a deserved lead. It was absolutely poor play from Liverpool, who were dreadful in that first half. Joel Matip gave the ball away, and then there was some lovely one-touch football between 3 Brighton players. It eventually fell to Mitoma, who then played it across for an unmarked march to tap it in from inside the 6-yard box. It's Brighton 1, Liverpool 0.
So Brighton a goal up. The equalising goal for Southampton scored by James Ward-Prowse, where it is now Everton 1, Southampton 1 in that big game at the basement of the Premier League. We'll be getting news of that goal from Jordan Mansour very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brila FM. But just a quick recap then of the latest scores and the Premier League for you. Brighton 1, Liverpool 0, Everton 1, Southampton 1, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, Wolves 1, West Ham 0. The latest scores for you there in the Premier League. We'll be going around the grounds very, very shortly. Just to give you a couple of latest scores from the Championship again. Sunderland 0, Swansea 1 now. The latest score there. Sunderland down to 10 men. No other goals, second half goals to tell you about in the Championship. So you're up to date with all things Championship. You're listening to Football Live on Brila FM. Let's head back to the match taking place at the City Ground. It's the only goalless game that we've got so far now in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest against Leicester. Pat Norret.
Yeah, you're right, but a goal nearly came for Leicester. What it was, Yuri Tillman found Harvey Barnes in the box. He took his shot. What a good chance that was, and it hit the post and went out. So it seems to me that Leicester has come out now with more intent, trying to get the ball in the final third and trying to get that goal early. With 51 gone, Forest 0, Leicester 0.
Let's get news of that equalising goal then for Southampton at Goodison Park against Everton. Jordan Mansour.
Southampton come out the second half with nothing to lose, it seems, with a great amount of desire, and they've got the equalising goal. It was Cole Walker-Peters who chipped the ball into Che Adams, who managed to just lay it off for James Ward-Prowse, who took it past Ben Godfrey and put it past Jordan Pickford. And the assumption was that if Southampton were going to find a goal today, it would have come from a James Ward-Prowse set piece. It has come from James Ward-Prowse, but it's not a set piece. But it's just as important. It's Everton 1, Southampton 1.
So it's all level then now at Goodison Park. Let's just check back in with our featured match that we are covering in the Championship this afternoon. Reading against Queen's Park Rangers. An update on the early salvos in the second half of that game from Josh Bailey.
No more goals here, Chris. So far it remains Reading 2, QPR 0. QPR to Chris from Chris Willock as he tried to send the ball into the box from the other side of the pitch. But then it was blocked and went out for a corner. But only 5 minutes gone so far. No goals to report off yet. But I can imagine QPR are going to be very hungry to try and get back into this game. As said about a couple of times in this report, it's Reading 2, QPR 0.
So the Royals still very much in control in that game. You listen to Football Live here on Brila FM. And of course, as I've mentioned previously, plenty of action coming up on tomorrow's programme.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Barry Swain here, and I will be back on Football Live on Brila FM tomorrow afternoon for an extended show which starts at 2:45 in the afternoon. We've got some absolutely brilliant football action to look forward to. 2 earlier kickoffs in the Premier League, Newcastle against Fulham, Chelsea against Crystal Palace, and then we move on to the big London derby, the North London derby, the London derby of all derbies. It's Tottenham Hotspur against Arsenal from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we will keep a very close eye on that. We'll also have feature games in Portugal, in the Netherlands, in Italy and in France. An absolutely action-packed afternoon. 4 hours of football tomorrow afternoon with myself, Barry Swain, and our brilliant team of reporters from 2:45 in the afternoon. We hope you can join us then.
Further goal news from the Amex Stadium. That didn't work, but I can tell you that it is now Brighton 2, Liverpool 0. Brighton 2, Liverpool 0 is the latest score that we have for you from the Amex. News of that second goal coming up very, very shortly. But Brighton now firmly in control of that game. What has happened to Liverpool this season? They now trail at the Amex by 2-0, and we'll be crossing back over to Jackson Cole very shortly for news of that goal. But it's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0, the latest score now from the Amex. Everton 1, Southampton 1, Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester 0, Wolves 1, West Ham 0. The latest scores for you there in the Premier League. But it's all going wrong, as I say, for Liverpool. News of the second goal, it's Solly Marsh, in fact, who scored a brace now in that game. 2 goals in around 6 minutes or so. Let's get the details now from Jackson Cole.
Yes, it's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0, and it's Solly March again. It was an absolutely brilliant finish from March. He was played through, brilliant pass into him. I don't know where Ibrahima Konate was, but take nothing away from the finish by Solly March, who got onto his left foot and fired it beyond Alisson Becker at the Liverpool goal. Liverpool are in a crisis right now. It's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0.
And goal news coming in now from the City Ground, where the deadlock has finally been broken there, and Nottingham Forest, such a difficult side to beat when they're playing at home. They have taken the lead. It is now Nottingham Forest 1, Leicester City 0. Pat Narrett will be giving us news of that goal for Steve Cooper's side, but a really big goal for Nottingham Forest, and Leicester City's woes continue in the Premier League this season. Nottingham Forest 1, Leicester City now Leicester City 0 is now the latest score for you from the City ground. So the goals are absolutely flying in the Premier League at the moment. I can tell you that VAR are checking that goal for Nottingham Forest. And in fact, VAR have ruled it out for offside. So it remains goalless. That's the news that we are receiving from the City ground. It remains goalless there. Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester City 0. Brennan Johnson, I'm not sure, in fact, who scored the goal. We'll be getting details from Pat Narrett very, very shortly. But it has been ruled out. So it remains Nottingham Forest 0, Leicester City 0 then at the City ground after a VAR check on that. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. We're with you right the way through until 6 o'clock this evening. Let's get news of that VAR decision from the City ground. Pat Narrett.
Well, I can tell you they're still checking the VAR at the moment, and it was actually looked like Brendan Johnson put the ball at the back of the net, but he was arguing with the linesman saying it's been disagreed. At the moment we're looking at, but now it's been given. 57 gone. Brent Johnson scoring that goal. Forest 1, Leicester City 0. So we've got a goal. Great game here we got.
So much confusion in at the City ground, but that goal finally being given then. Brennan Johnson accredited with it. It is now Nottingham Forest 1, Leicester City 0. Just to confirm that, Nottingham Forest 1, Leicester City 0 is now the latest score from the City ground. We'll be going around the grounds again very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's just recap some of the latest scores for you. Once again, in the Championship, Bristol City have now extended their lead against Birmingham. They lead 3-1. Burnley, the league leaders, of course, running away with the Championship this season. Currently goalless still at home to Coventry. Cardiff 0, Wigan 0, Hull 0, Huddersfield 1, Luton 2, West Brom 1. Middlesbrough have now taken the lead at home to Millwall. They lead by a goal to 0. Preston 0, Norwich 3, Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 0. That's our featured match in the Premier League here on in the Championship, rather, on Football Live this afternoon. Sheffield United 2, Stoke 1, Sunderland 0, Swansea 1, and Watford 0, Blackpool 0. All latest scores for you from the Championship. And in the Scottish Premiership, Hibs 1, Dundee United 2, Motherwell 0, Ross County 0, St Johnstone 0, Livingston 3. In the Spanish La Liga, as they approach, it still remains half-time. In fact, Girona against Sevilla. Girona 0, Sevilla 1, the latest score there. And our featured match in the Portuguese Primeira Liga, it remains Vizela 2, Maritimo 0. We'll be getting a half-time report from Jake Bowers very, very shortly here on Football Live. And 7 minutes of the second half played in the Nigerian Premier League, and it remains Nasarawa 0, Enyimba 2. Right, let's go around the grounds once again in the Premier League this afternoon here on Football Live. Let's just check back in with Jackson Cole at the Amex Stadium. Brighton against Liverpool, and the Seagulls in cruise control at the moment, Jackson.
They certainly are, Chris. It's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0. 2 goals from Solly March at the start of this second half is what separates the two sides. Liverpool have got a little bit better since the second goal went in. They're playing with the ball a little bit more. They actually had their first shot on target a couple of minutes ago. It's a lovely ball from Trent Alexander-Arnold into Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, but he miscued his header and it sort of bounced pretty harmlessly into Robert Sanchez's arms. I see Harvey Elliott has been ready to come on, hope to try and inject some creativity into this Liverpool side, who have just not been at the races at all today, and to be honest, not too many times this season. So yeah, it's about 60 minutes on the clock, and it's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0.
And Jackson, it's no doubt about it, it's been another terrific season, isn't it, for Brighton? I mean, they had the upheaval at the start of the season with the departure of Graham Potter, but Roberto De Zerbi, he's placed them in a really good position to improve on that 9th place finish in the Premier League last season.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll have their eyes on finishing in the Europa League spots at the way they're going. They're going to go above Liverpool into 6th if they can carry on as they're going. Into 7th ahead of Liverpool. I should correct myself. They've done really well under Roberto De Zerbi. He was something of an unknown quantity when he first came to the Premier League. He had done well with Sassuolo and with Shakhtar Donetsk, but he's done really well. Actually, pre-match, he had only won one game at home for Brighton in the Premier League, but that's sure to be his second one in about half an hour's time. So it's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0.
As we cross back to Molineux once again, Wolves against West Ham United here on Football Live. Here's Matt Temporal.
Well, as you would imagine, West Ham have had to come out a bit more and start to play a bit more attacking football as they're now behind in the game. They haven't really created many chances, and Wolves have been looking to catch West Ham on the break. But West Ham have just brought on their secret weapon, Said Benrahma, who's come off the bench. He's replaced Thomas Souček. Benrahma's arguably been their most productive player this season, so it was quite a surprise to see him on the bench in the first place. But we'll see if that changes anything. It's Wolves 1, West Ham 0.
Matt, sorry, it's been a difficult few weeks, isn't it, for West Ham? And obviously they had that FA Cup win at Brentford last week. It might have given David Moyes just a little bit more time, but I mean, this was always going to be a tricky test for them at Molineux this afternoon. But defeat today, and as it stands at the moment, that will drop them into the bottom three. So the pressure is really mounting on David Moyes at the moment.
Yeah, I think David Moyes has never really been the most fashionable manager, and it seems that whenever he starts to go on a bit of a losing streak, the fans change their mind on him. You can't doubt that what he's done with West Ham the last couple of seasons has been fantastic, but maybe this team is just coming to the end of its cycle. You've got a few players in their 30s, Mikel Antonio, Aaron Creswell, Ogbonna. Maybe it's time to regenerate the squad a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with regards to David Moyes.
At the moment, West Ham heading towards 7 Premier League matches without a win for the first time since February 2020. They still trail at Molineux by a goal to nil as we head back to Goodison Park. Everton against Southampton, where it was 1 apiece the last time we were with Jordan Mansour.
And it still is 1 apiece, but it's a messy game, it's a chaotic game, it's everything you want from a bottom of the table clash. It's desperation, and it's going to be decided by something very marginal, I suspect. And fortune just favoured Southampton as it was Ben Godfrey who bulldozed down the right side into the centre towards the heart of the Southampton defence. Played it into Damari Gray, who spotted the run of Calvert-Lewin, and he had the chance to shoot. The goal was gaping and deflected and just hit the bar. No one knew whether it was going to dip in or just miss out. The anticipation from the crowd, and it hit the bar. But this game is lively, and it's not filled with quality, but it's definitely filled with desire and passion. You can't question that of either side. They're both playing for the managers, you can tell. But it's still missing that bit of quality, which is going to push it one way or the other. But it remains 1-0, Everton Southampton.
So still 1 apiece then at Goodison Park. Just looking at the bottom of the Premier League table as it stands, because it is such an important afternoon, isn't it? With 6 of the bottom 8 in action against each other this afternoon. Just 2 points separating Leicester City in 14th from West Ham in 19th as it stands at the moment. So getting very, very congested at the bottom of the Premier League table. Right, let's just check back in now with Pat Narett, who's watching Nottingham Forest versus Leicester City here on Football Live.
Yeah, since Nottingham Forest scored the goal, even before that, Leicester had most of the possession from the start of the second half. They still got most of the possession, but Forest are very clever. They can play different ways. They can play with the ball, and they also can play on the counter as well. And Steve Cooper has made a couple of substitutions, so it looks to me that he's going to try to play on the counter. And Leicester are just going forward, and they might get caught again. With 65 gone, Nottingham Forest 1, Leicester City 0.
Into the Championship we go. Queen's Park Rangers have really been struggling in the last few weeks. They can't bag a win at all. And are they making any headway in this game? Are they still trailing at against Reading this afternoon? Josh Bailey.
They're having a few more chances, yeah, Chris, but they've yet to have a shot on target in this game. You've had a shot from Tyler Roberts, who crossed it into the box in the direction of Ethan Lahr, but he couldn't get his head onto the end of the ball. You had Lyndon Dykes, who got into the box and kind of unleashed a wild shot from mid-range, which went so far wide, it nearly hit the corner flag. So they're dominating a lot more of the possession here. You have a 62% possession in this game. the onus is on QPR to find 2 goals in this game. So Reading very happy to kind of just sit back, and actually Paul Ince has made a couple of substitutions. That is the Reading manager. He has brought on Mamadou Loom has just gone off Tom McIntyre, and also he's also decided to bring on Julian Hoylett. He's brought off Julian Hoylett, and that's been replaced by Scott Dan. So that's so far. It's currently Reading 2, QPR 0.
And just briefly, a word on Andy Carroll, 34 years of age now. He signed a new contract with Reading until the end of next season. A bit prior to this afternoon's game, 2 goals in his last 3 games for Reading as well. And he's still a player that can carry a threat and be a bit of a handful for defenders.
Yeah, I mean, how long have we been talking about Andy Carroll for? It's been years and years since that controversial move to Liverpool. He just hangs around, Chris. He just hangs around. He's found himself in Reading, and like you said, he's scoring goals, and that's what he's paid to do. And he'll be there to try and get Reading pushing up to the playoffs. He hasn't got in the goals today though, but he has caused a nuisance of himself. Kind of big man, little man, playing up against Tom Ince, which is obviously Paul Ince's son. Paul Ince being the Reading manager. But yeah, Andy Carroll, love him or hate him, he's a brilliant player, and he's still hanging around. So far, it's Reading 2, QPR 0.
Thanks very much, Josh. And any further developments in that game at the Select Car Leasing Stadium, you will hear them first and foremost here on Football Live on Brila FM. A couple of other goals to tell you about in the Championship. Sunderland down to 10 men, but they've got back on level terms at home to Swansea. It's now Sunderland 1, Swansea 1. And West Brom, who were trailing at Luton by 2-0, have now brought it back to level terms as well. It's now Luton 2, West Brom 2 in that game. Carlos Corberan has done an amazing job since he took over at the Hawthorns back in, was it around about October, November time? They were trailing 2-0 at Kenilworth Road, but I can tell you it is now Luton 2, West Brom 2. In fact, West Brom have now gone ahead in that game. It's Luton 2, West Brom 3 in that game. There has been a further goal I can tell you about in our feature match in the Championship at the Select Car Leasing Stadium. Just as we left Josh Bailey, and Queen's Park Rangers have reduced the deficit. It's now Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 1 in that game. So we'll be getting news of that goal from Josh very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brila FM. But Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 1 is now the latest score there. And as I was just referring to, West Brom, what a turnaround. 2-0 down at Luton, and they now lead 3-2. In the Scottish Premiership, latest scores for you. Hibs 1, Dundee United 2, Motherwell 1, Ross County 0, the latest score there, and St Johnstone 2, Livingston 3. I'll tell you what, let's get a half-time report from the featured match that we're covering, the Portuguese Primeira Liga this afternoon. Vitória against Maritimo. Here's Jake Bowers.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a very exciting half, if not for the first 10 minutes of this half, because we had 2 goals. That's right, 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. The first goal was a very sloppy defensive effort from Maritimo, just letting the plane press them and then not knowing what to do with it when they need to get rid of it, passing it straight into Vitsela, which then passed in the midfield into Samu, the creative number 20, who passed it straight into the back post, where Osmajic got his first of the game. And I said first of the game because only 4 minutes later, he was at the brace. Another Samu ball straight over the top, punishing Maritimo's complacency at the back, not knowing what to do with it. A lovely goal from Osmajic again, doubling the score in the game, also doubling his goal tally of the season. So it's a good game for him and also for Vitsela in general. After that, the game turned a little bit. However, nothing substantial from Maritimo, as they haven't been able to create anything substantial in the game. They've dominated possession, they've dominated a lot of the passing, actually, in fact, and also a lot of the crosses. However, nothing that can break the deadlock of the 2-0. Vitsela lead, and it's interesting to see what they do in half-time, how Maritimo come back and try and get these goals, because as it stands, Vitsela are in 8th, Maritimo 17th, and these are the games that really count. We'll see what they can do. Looking forward to half-time. Hopefully there's going to be fireworks. Maritimo fans will hope it goes their way, but we will see. But as it stands at half-time, it's Vitsela 2, Maritimo 0.
Let's get news of that goal for Queen's Park Rangers. Away to Reading. Here's Josh Bailey.
Yes, Tyler Roberts has set up a grandstand finish here in Reading with 20 minutes to go. He has got one back for QPR. It was Jamal Lowe, who's recently joined QPR on loan from his parent club Bournemouth. He broke into the box and then laid it off to Tyler Roberts, who shot home from close range into the bottom right-hand corner, leaving the goalkeeper no chance. That is Tyler Roberts, only his second goal this year in the Championship. And it's a big one. 20 minutes to go. It's Reading 2, QPR 1.
So QPR halving the deficit in that game. I can tell you that Norwich are now 4-0 up away to Preston. They've just scored a fourth goal there. So it's Preston 0, Norwich City 4. And Swansea have restored their lead at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland, who had equalised. It's now Sunderland 1, Swansea 2. So you're up to date with all the latest scores in the Championship. Bristol City, in fact, have also extended the lead in their game. They now lead Birmingham at home by 4-1. We'll be around the grounds very, very shortly, once again here on Football Live on Brila FM. But, of course, plenty of action, just to remind you, taking place again, of course, tomorrow here on Football Live. We'll be across all the big games in the Premier League, of course, which are led really by that North London derby taking place at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where, of course, Tottenham Hotspur meet Arsenal. Coming up very shortly, the thoughts of Gunners boss Mikel Arteta on that game. But first, let's hear from his counterpart, Antonio Conte, discussing tomorrow's big clash.
The confidence, and we lost a game against Aston Villa at home, and then we won away against Crystal Palace, a good game, 4-0, and then in FA Cup we are in the next round. It's a good moment. It's a good moment because the players wants to work very hard, and they understood the importance after the World Cup to go quickly into the football in Premier League, into the competition FA Cup, and for this reason I'm seeing them really focused. They know much more than me the importance of this type of game. Then when you play against an important team, like Arsenal, Manchester City, and the tension is very high, and for me it's not so difficult to keep the focus, to keep the tension for the players.
I just love it. That's the reason why we are here, to play these kind of games. It's one of the biggest games of the season for us. We know how much it means right now for us on the table, and how much it means to our people as well. But we just have to focus on playing well and doing what we have to win the game. I don't know. Sometimes they approach games in different ways. Sometimes they are very aggressive from the beginning. Sometimes they allow you to make the game, and they have a lot of tools to use to cause you problems. So let's see. We have to start to see what the game develops. We will prepare for any occasion the best possible way, and then it will be left to the players to do what they have to do on the pitch.
The thoughts of Antonio Conte and Mikel Arteta ahead of Tottenham versus Arsenal tomorrow afternoon. You'll remember the last time these two sides met was back in October. Arsenal inflicting Tottenham's first defeat of the season on that occasion with a 3-1 win. Our reporters Jack Hesson and Andrew Bonacore will be reporting on that match for Football Live tomorrow, which kicks off at 5:30 p.m. And, of course, we'll have all the team news and updates from the two earlier 3 p.m. kickoffs as well. Newcastle host Fulham, with the Magpies looking to consolidate their place in the top four. Let's hear from head coach Eddie Howe discussing the incredible season that Newcastle's opponents have had so far.
Yeah, they're very much in good form. I think Marco's done a very, very good job with the team. I'm very impressed with the style of play, so that they're not getting results by anything other than a very cohesive team unit, playing a lot of really good football. Tactically, they're very interesting, and they've got players in form, so dangerous attacking players from our perspective. So I think it'll be a good test of our defensive capabilities, and two very good teams and form teams going at each other.
That's Newcastle head coach Eddie Howe ahead of their meeting with Fulham tomorrow afternoon. Meanwhile, under fire, Chelsea boss Graham Potter. He'll be hoping for a change in his side's fortunes when they entertain Crystal Palace at Stamford Bridge tomorrow, with Potter expressing his thoughts for the Blues fans at his recent press conference.
Yeah, they're very much in good form. I think Marco's done a very, very good job with the team. I'm very impressed with the style of play, so that they're not getting results by anything other than a very cohesive team unit, playing a lot of really good football. Tactically, they're very interesting, and they've got players in form, so dangerous attacking players from our perspective. So I think it'll be a good test of our defensive capabilities, and two very good teams and form teams going at each other.
That's Chelsea boss Graham Potter, and what a wretched campaign it's been for the club in recent months, out of both domestic cup competitions and virtually out of the race for the Champions League places this season as well, following that 2-1 defeat to Fulham on Thursday. That's all to come, so make sure that you join your host Barry Swain tomorrow for the best Premier League coverage right here on Football Live from 2:45 p.m. Tomorrow. We've got about 25 minutes of this afternoon's edition remaining. Let's go around the grounds once again now. First of all, we'll head to Molineux. Wolves against West Ham, and I believe that Wolves have come pretty close to extending their lead in that game. Matt Temporal.
Well, David Moyes is definitely going for it, but it just seems that the West Ham players aren't really corresponding with what Moyes wants. He's just brought on Gianluca Scamacca, but the best chance since the goal has been Ruben Neves. The ball got crossed into the box. He chested it down, cut inside, dummied a player, hit a fantastic finish, but it just hit the crossbar and bounced back out. Wolves very unlucky not to be 2-0 up here, but West Ham need something in this game. They need to attack and they need a goal. It's Wolves 1, West Ham 0.
Back to the Championship we go. Our featured match is Reading against Queen's Park Rangers. For an update on that game, here's Josh Bailey.
A golden chance for QPR as they try and go and search for the equaliser here in Reading. It was Lyndon Dykes who got the ball inside the box, and he missed an absolutely huge chance, but not to the detriment of the goalkeeper, because it was a beautiful, stunning save by the Reading keeper. In the end, the ball went out through a corner, but that was a huge chance for QPR, and one that they may regret as we go into the last 15 minutes. It's still Reading 2, QPR 1.
Further goal news to tell you about in the Championship, and the deadlock has been broken at Vicarage Road. It is now Watford 1, Blackpool 0, and the Nigerian Toby Adeyemo has opened the scoring for Watford in that game. His very first match in the colours of Watford, and they have taken the lead there. A goal from Toby Adeyemo. It is now Watford 1, Blackpool 0. Let's head back to the Amex Stadium. Are Liverpool coming any closer to reducing the deficit in that game where they were trailing Brighton by 2-0? Here's Jackson Cole.
Well, yes, a very short time ago they almost got back into it. A rare moment of quality from Liverpool saw Harvey Elliott win the ball inside the box, but he dragged his near post effort wide of the goal. He really should have done better than that. Sort of tempers are starting to fray a bit. Trent Alexander-Arnold, he got a yellow card for a very late tackle on Evan Ferguson. And in fact, shortly after that, Jurgen Klopp made 4 changes all at once. Off came Fabinho, Joel Matip, who got booked, Jordan Henderson, who was also booked in the first half, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think Jurgen Klopp has pretty much admitted defeat, and now he's just got to make sure that nobody on the team gets themselves a suspension for future matches, because this game is totally gone for Liverpool. Brighton have them exactly where they want them. It's Brighton 2, Liverpool 0.
Let's head back to the City Ground. Before we do, I can tell you there has been another goal at Goodison Park. And what a massive goal this could be in the scheme of things. It is now Everton 1, Southampton 2. So Southampton have turned the game around there. They did trail, of course, by 1-0, but they are now leading 2-1 with just over 10 minutes or so remaining in that game. Confirmation of the goal scorer very, very shortly, but the pressure is really going to ramp up now on the Toffees manager, Frank Lampard, should they go down to defeat this afternoon. And Southampton, who've really turned the corner in the last 2 or 3 matches or so, are now 2-1 up at Goodison Park. They were, of course, rooted to the foot of the table going into this game. But it's now Everton 1, Southampton 2. James Ward-Prowse has scored his second goal of the game there to put the Saints 2-1 up. An absolutely massive, massive goal. And unsurprisingly, I know he scored from open play first time round with the first goal for the Saints, but he scored from a free kick apparently for the second goal. So Everton 1, Southampton 2. That's the news now from Goodison Park. Let's just update you with some of the other latest scores around Europe. It's Girona 1, Sevilla 1 in Spanish La Liga into the 66th minute in that game. In French League 1, they're approaching half-time. It's still goalless. Lens against Auxerre. And a final score to give you, I think, which I omitted from the from earlier on. It ended Cremonese 2, Monza 3 in Italian Serie A. And in the Nigerian Premier League, with just under 15 minutes remaining, it's still Nasarawa 0, Enyimba 2. That's the latest score there. And finally, in the Belgian Jupiler Pro League, 10 minutes remaining in the match between Serang and Standard Liège, where it is 1 apiece in that game. So you're up to date with all these scores around Europe. In the Scottish Premiership, Hibs 1, Dundee 2, Motherwell 1, Ross County 1, and Livingston are now 4-2 up away to St Johnstone. There is goal news to tell you about. Further goal news from the Amex Stadium. And I can tell you that Brighton are now leading Liverpool by 3-0. Wow, what an afternoon it's been for the Seagulls. They've already, of course, beaten Manchester United this season, earlier on this season. And they are now leading Liverpool by 3-0. We'll get goal news from our reporter on that game very, very shortly, who is, of course, Jackson Cole. Manchester United and Chelsea, of course, already a couple of scalps for Brighton this season, as mentioned. And now they're going to take the scalp of Liverpool. 3-0 is the latest score from the Amex Stadium. And Danny Welbeck has scored the third goal in the 82nd minute for the Seagulls. And further goal news to tell you about now from our featured match in the Championship, where QPR have come back for the dead in that game. They were trailing Reading 2-0, but it is now Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2. And we'll be getting news and details of that equalising goal for Queen's Park Rangers from Josh Bailey very, very shortly. But Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2 now, the latest score from our featured match in the Championship. Let's get news of that third Brighton goal from the Amex Stadium. Here's Jackson Cole.
Yes, it's Brighton 3, Liverpool 0, and it's Danny Welbeck, the substitute and former Manchester United player, who rounds off a truly miserable day for the Reds. It was a lovely bit of ingenuity from Welbeck, who controlled the ball after the ball was flicked on from a throw-in, and he lobbed the ball over Trent Alexander-Arnold and then fired it past the helpless Alisson. But my goodness, it was more poor defending from Liverpool. Ibrahima Konate was in no man's land, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, he really shouldn't be getting beaten there. I don't know what to say with Liverpool. It's just been an absolute write-off from start to finish. It's Brighton 3, Liverpool 0.
And another goal for you at the City Ground. And it's now Nottingham Forest 2, Leicester City 0. Steve Cooper's side on their way to another 3 points at the City Ground. They lead by 2-0. Brennan Johnson has scored his second goal of the game there. So Nottingham Forest 2, Leicester City 0. News of that goal coming up very, very shortly from Pat Narrett. First of all, let's get news of that second goal for Southampton at Goodison Park. The Saints are heading towards all 3 points this afternoon. Jordan Mansour.
Yes, they are, and there it is. It's the trademark James Ward-Prowse free kick. And the game's calling out for something like that. Everton were the ones who took the risk. They rolled the dice, and they allowed the game to open up. But it worked to their detriment, because Southampton went up the other end after an Everton corner, built up a small amount of pressure. It doesn't take much to rustle Everton's defence. They give away a free kick on the edge of the box, and James Ward-Prowse doing what 99% of the crowd expected him to do, and he put it into the top corner. 10 minutes to go now for Everton, and if questions are being asked of Frank Lampard before the game, I wonder what's being asked of him now. Massive pressure mounting on him and his team as they look for an equaliser in the last 10 minutes, but they've done it before. I wouldn't say game over just yet. Everton 1, Southampton 2.
And if it stays that way, then that will drop Everton into the bottom 3 in the Premier League. Southampton will stay rooted to the foot of the table on goal difference, but of course will be within touching distance of Bournemouth, who currently, as it stands, are in 17th place. They will just be 1 point away from safety. Let's get news of that second goal for Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. Pat Narrett.
What a goal that was, and what a pass it was. Morgan Gibbs-White plays in Brendan Johnson, right, who shows great determination to get to the ball before a couple of defenders and slotted it in. So, a goal. I tell you what, it was against the run of play, because I thought that before you came to me, Forest was just keeping the ball, not going anywhere. But what a goal. What a goal that was. So now with, 87 gone, Nottingham Forest 2, Leicester 0.
Wow, so let's just recap the latest scores once again that we have for you then in the Premier League this afternoon. Brighton 3, Liverpool 0 is the latest score from the Amex Stadium. Everton 1, Southampton 2, Nottingham Forest 2, Leicester 0, as you just heard, and Wolves 1, West Ham 0, as we approach the full times in each of those games here on Football Live on Brila FM. Our featured match in the Portuguese Primeira Liga this afternoon is Vizela against the struggling Maritimo, and a red card has been produced in that game for Jake Bowers to tell us about. Jake.
It certainly has. Maritimo's day goes from bad to worse, and this could be a key factor in the game in securing Vizela all 3 points and slingshotting them up to 8th. It was a ball through, and as they've been doing most of the game, Vizela break, and unfortunately Matthias Costa, with a very clumsy error, gets across Osmasic and denies him scoring. It was outside the box, so the referee initially gave the yellow. However, after a VAR look, which took a couple of minutes, it was clear cut and he had to go. The yellow card was rescinded and the red card was given for Matthias Costa. Maritimo's challenge just became from unlikely to near enough impossible, and they're down to 10 men. They've got a hell of a mountain to climb. We'll see how they go from here, but it's looking like Vizela are going to steal the 3 points, as currently it's Vizela 2 versus a 10-men Maritimo with 0.
So it remains 2-0 then to Vizela in that game. Let's get to news of that equalising goal for Queen's Park Rangers at the Select Car Leasing Stadium against Reading. Here's Josh Bailey.
Yes, QPR have turned it around and they have equalised here, and it's Tyler Roberts at the double, and it was a rebound around in the Reading area. It ball popped up into the air. Tyler Roberts rose highest and headed it into the middle of the goal to get these scores equal. QPR, though, they're not done yet. Elias Chair just had a free kick from a promising distance, and he sent it narrowly wide of the right post. QPR, they're hungry, they're smelling blood, and they might be able to find the third before the final whistle goes here. 5 minutes to go. It's Reading 2, QPR 2.
What a game that's been this afternoon. Let's just rattle through some of the latest scores for you from the Championship. Earlier on today ended Rotherham 4, Blackburn 0. These are all latest scores as we approach full time. Bristol City 4, Birmingham 2. Burnley have now taken the lead at home to Coventry. Birmingham, of course, top of the table going into this afternoon's matches. Jordan Bayer has opened the scoring late on there for Burnley, who of course are running away with the Championship at the moment. Other latest scores for you from the Championship: Cardiff 1, Wigan 0, Hull 0, Huddersfield 1, Luton 2, West Brom 3. What a game that is. Middlesbrough 1, Millwall 0, Preston 0, Norwich 4, Reading 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2, as you just heard, Sheffield United 2, Stoke 1, Sunderland 1, Swansea 3, Sunderland down to 10 men, and Watford 1, Blackpool 0. Toby Adeyemo with the goal for Watford in that game. In the Scottish Premiership, Hibs 1, Dundee United 2, Motherwell 1, Ross County 1, St Johnstone 2, Livingston 4. In French League 1, it's half-time. Lens 0, Auxerre 0. Just before we go around the grounds once again in the Premier League, a latest score from Spanish La Liga: Girona 1, Sevilla 1 with about 15 minutes remaining there. In the Nigerian Premier League, Nasarawa 0, Enyimba 2 with about 5 minutes or so remaining there. And in the Belgian Jupiler Pro League, it remains Serang 1, Standard Liège 1. closing stages of that game as well. Let's go around the grounds for probably what could be the final time this afternoon here on Football Live on Brila FM. Let's just check back in at the Amex Stadium. Brighton sailing away with this game. Jackson Cole.
Yeah, it's Brighton 3, Liverpool 0, and this scoreline does not flatter the Seagulls at all. They have been superior to the 2019-20 Premier League champions from start to finish. It was 0-0 at half time. Brighton were the better team, and they almost got a penalty just before half time, but unfortunately for them, it was overturned because Solly March, who was fouled, was offside. But March, he put that behind them and scored 2 goals right at the start of the second half. The second one was particularly good, arrowed it into the corner of the net, beating one of the best goalkeepers in the world in Alisson Becker. And then a short time ago, some deserved gloss, I must add, was put on the scoreline when Danny Welbeck did brilliantly to flick the ball up and then volley the ball home. So yeah, Brighton will be going above Liverpool they definitely will be win this match. And as for Liverpool, I mean, I think this is one of the darkest days under Jurgen Klopp's premiership as Liverpool manager. It's Brighton 3, Liverpool 0.
What an impressive performance from Roberto De Zerbi's side this afternoon at the Amex. Let's just check back in now at Molineux. Wolves against West Ham as Wolverhampton Wanderers edge towards the 3 points in that game. Matt Temporal.
Well, we're into added time and the pressure is finally being ramped up by West Ham United, particularly down the left-hand side. They've got 2 big boys up front in Scamacca and Antonio, very physical. They're playing the balls into those and they're getting a bit of luck, but still haven't really created a clear-cut chance. But down the left-hand side with Ben Rama and Creswell, they've looked a lot more dangerous, but they've got to be careful because Wolves have brought on Adama Traore, and we all know what his strengths are, particularly on the counter-attack. But still, Wolves 1, West Ham 0.
Next to Goodison Park, the dark clouds hovering over that ground, no doubt. Everton against Southampton. Here's Jordan Mansour.
Yeah, Everton throwing everything at it here for these last few minutes, just into stoppage time at Goodison Park. And it just seems like they don't have the tools. And Frank Lampard, he came in last season, had a great impact. Definitely they fed off the crowd. They managed to stay up. And the jubilant scenes on the pitch last season looked like maybe this season would be a bit more positive. They'd carry the momentum from last season. But now it seems that with Frank Lampard trying to implement a style of play, it just hasn't quite worked out. And it looks like Southampton are going to come here and grab a much-needed 3 points for them within the relegation context. And it's looking like it could be that game for Everton. I think I call back to last season, they lost at home to Brighton. And that was the one where I really thought this side could go down. And I think everyone in Goodison Park would agree with me when I say this looks like a side that could potentially get relegated. It remains Everton 1, Southampton 2, a few minutes to go.
And goal news coming in from Molineux. Have West Ham got back on level terms in that game? Well, I can tell you they haven't, because Wolves now, the 3 points are sealed. They lead by 2-0. Daniel Podence, of course, opened the scoring 3 minutes into the second half in that game, and they have just added a second. It's Wolves 2, West Ham 0. Details of that coming up very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brila FM. We're inside the final 10 minutes of the show. There's been another goal in the Nigerian Premier League match that's been taking place this afternoon. Nasarawa have reduced the deficit there. They trail in Yimba now by 2-1 in that game. But just to recap, that Wolves have scored a second now and heading towards 3 points at home to West Ham. The final whistle has gone at the Amex Stadium. And it's been a terrific afternoon for Roberto De Zerbi's side. Let's get a full-time report on that match against Liverpool from Jackson Cole.
Yes, finished Brighton 3, Liverpool 0. The worrying news from a Liverpool perspective is that this scoreline does not flatter Brighton at all. The home side, they took the lead just a minute into the second half as Solly March tapped the ball home as he got on the end of a Kaoru Mitoma cross. Kaoru Mitoma, he was brilliant, by the way, across after Joel Matip gave the ball away. Moments later, March then got his second of the afternoon and fourth of the season with an arrowed effort into the corner of the net after being played through by Evan Ferguson. And some deserved gloss was put on the scoreline on 82 minutes when substitute Danny Welbeck flicked the ball over Ibrahim Konate before expertly volleying home. It's the first time in precisely 62 years Brighton have won a league match at home to Liverpool. Roberto De Zerbi's men now move up to 7th and can maybe start dreaming of Europe for next season. As for Liverpool, their hopes of finishing in the top 4 appear to be in tatters following this nightmare performance. It's finished Brighton 3, Liverpool 0.
Wolves' second goal has been ruled out, apparently, for offside. Let's hear all about it from Matt Temporal.
Well, I don't know what Raul Jimenez has to do to get a goal this season. He's yet to get on the score sheet in any game. The ball got flicked up into in a counter-attack into the Wolves' half. Flicked on by Ait Nouri to Raul Jimenez, who finished it quite amazingly, actually. Really, really comfortable and composed finish. But, of course, the flag went straight up. As I said, Wolves dangerous on the counter-attack here, but we are very, very close to full-time. It looks like it's going to be Wolves 1, West Ham 0.
So very nearly full-time there. The final whistle has blown at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. For a full-time report is Pat Narrett.
Yes, because it's finished Forest 2, Leicester City 0. And the first half, I would say, was an even affair, even though that Leicester had more of the possession. On the 56 minutes, what happened was Leicester was attacking and Forest broke away, and Gibbs-White got the ball in between the defenders and Johnson finished it off. And it was an inquiry of VAR, but he wasn't offside. And then the game went on where Leicester again had possession of the ball until Gibbs-White won the ball back and played a wonderful ball outside of his foot to Johnson, and Johnson put the ball away. And so it ended with Forest 2, Leicester 0.
And the full-time whistle has now also blown at Molineux. Wolves against West Ham. We rejoin Matt Temporal.
Yeah, full-time here. Wolves with a 1-0 win against West Ham. It's looking very ominous now for David Moyes. I'm sure if you ask the West Ham fans, they would tell you that the new signings just have not clicked. They just have not worked. You've got Naof Aguerd. We see how good he was for Morocco in the World Cup. Lucas Paquetá for Brazil in the World Cup was fantastic. He's completely invisible for West Ham. He doesn't seem to do anything in the game, and he disappears for most of it. And Gianluca Scamacca's came off the bench today. He's big, physical, but he's just not scoring enough goals, and he puts himself about. But you need the ball to go in the back of the net, and that's what West Ham are struggling with. They didn't create any clear-cut chances today. Wolves, on the other hand, seem to be on a big upturn in form and performances. Lopetegui definitely has some fire in his belly. You can see that. And I'm sure if they keep performing as they are, Wolves will climb that table quite quickly. But at the end of the game here, it was Wolves 1, West Ham 0.
And the Wolves revival continues. And as for West Ham, their problems deepen still further. Still awaiting a full-time report from Jordan Mansour on Everton against Southampton. I can tell you that Southampton have taken all 3 points there. Let's hear all that news from that game now from Jordan Mansour.
It was a very interesting affair, high tension throughout the game, and Everton have lost against Southampton by 2-1. And Everton they've been left behind by the rest of the Premier League, especially by that middle pack of the Premier League. There's so much quality throughout the league at the moment, and Everton, their recruitment, the players they're bringing in, they're just not going to propel them. They signed Conor Cody from Wolves. He's a player who was out of favour there. Damari Gray, inconsistent, has moments of quality, but you can't rely on that as Everton, especially in the position that they are in. Of course, Gray's not the problem, but it's the players around him as well. They're just not stepping up. It seems stale, uninspiring, out of form. And themes we're seeing with clubs like West Ham as well, and you see managers coming in at Aston Villa, Wolves, inspiring the players, and they've had an upturn of form. So Everton in real trouble now. The board has let the club drift, and now they have drifted down to 19th place with 15 points. halfway through the season. It's not good enough for a club like Everton. Contrasting for Southampton, who are below Everton and level on points, but will be feeling much different to Everton tonight, as they have picked up a crucial 2-1 win away at Everton.
And in the Championship, a cracking game between Reading and Queen's Park Rangers. The full-time whistle has blown there. Here's Josh Bailey.
Yes, 4 goals between Reading and QPR shared between 2 heroes in Hendrick and Roberts. Reading were 2-0 up at the break thanks to a screamer from Hendrick and a simpler finish for him before the break. That meant they led 2-0 up. For QPR, they came up with a fire in their stomachs and they went and hunt for those 2 goals, and they got that through Tyler Roberts. And that meant that QPR and Reading drew 2. They came into this game level on points, and they leave this game also level on points. Full time here, it's Reading 2, QPR 2.
That's nearly it from us here on Football Live on Brila FM. Just a reminder, Brentford against Bournemouth kicks off in a little over half an hour's time. Brentford on a 6-game unbeaten run in the Premier League. And of course, beat Liverpool 3-1 at home in their last Premier League outing. Speaking of which, let's just wrap up the final scores for you from the Premier League action that has taken place today in the early kickoff. Of course, Manchester United beat Manchester City by 2-1 with goals courtesy of Bruno Fernandes and also Marcus Rashford as well. Brighton taking the 3 points against Liverpool in a 3-0 win with a couple of goals in that game for Solly Marsh. Danny Welbeck also on the score sheet. Everton 1, Southampton 2. The problems still deepen for Everton, in real crisis at the moment. James Ward-Prowse with both of Southampton's goals. And Brennan Johnson also scored a brace in their 2-0 win at home to Leicester. And Daniel Podence got the only goal of the game and the 3 points with their 1-0 win at home to West Ham. That's just about it then, as I say, from us this afternoon here on Football Live. Be sure to join us again tomorrow. 3 matches on offer for you. Of course, the standout fixture, the North London derby, Tottenham against Arsenal. We also have Chelsea against Crystal Palace and Newcastle against Fulham. That's all coming up tomorrow with your host, Barry Swain. Make sure you join us then. But for now, we hand you back to the team in Nigeria. A very good evening to you.
Great stuff, everyone.
John, did you lose Brilla then or not?
No, in the bottom it said disconnected from device.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
But I can hear it live fine, so I don't know what happened.
Oh, right.
For some reason, I don't know, is it just me, but most of the jingles were like sort of stopping and starting and stopping.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that, mate. 'Cause all of a sudden, because I haven't got it selected on loop.
Yeah, no.
But they were just...
Yeah, that was my fault because I put it when I was playing the crowd effects. I played it on loop, and I forgot to untick it. So that was the problem with that. So
okay.
It was a fault from my end, mate. So
all right, mate. I thought something I'd done this end.
No.
Yeah, but John,
all the other jungles they were playing like the crouch it, and it's like, so I wasn't quite sure if I was the only one who heard it or everyone else.
John, the StreamYard feed, by the way, Barry's just said in the chat.
Do what? Sorry.
Stop the StreamYard feed, as Barry just said it in the WhatsApp group.